With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Weeks of racing have done little to split drivers in the PRL doubleheader, and today a championship showdown. We land at Phillip Island. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV for the very final time in 2023, Season 3 of the Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series. And of course, coming up directly after this championship finale, another finale with the GT3 Sprint Series. Arjuna Kankipati delighted to be back alongside with Joey Tebben for the very final round of the championship. Joey, I missed two very exciting rounds at Circuit Barcelona, at the Circuit de la South, but now with championships to be decided, we're in for an exciting one after what's been a wild ride this season.
It's been wild from the very beginning, from Watkins Glen, the craziness in week one with John Jones winning in Fixed and Boris Ovanda winning in the Sprint Series with Karl Modov running out of fuel. Things started out crazy, and they've continued crazy for the next 8 weeks with our European tour as of late, with some crazy old rounds at VIR and Spa. There's been crashes, there's been penalties, but it's finally time for a championship finale. We've gone all the way down under to Phillip Island. No better place to crown a champion. It's different from any place we've been all season.
We need to make sure David Haynes and the rest of Australia never hears that accent and impersonation, but...
I hope they do.
Oh, okay, you're going to try it again, are you? The one thing that always makes it interesting in the PRL is that the 9 previous rounds, 1 drop rounds allowed, whether that's for drivers needing to miss for real-world reasons or if they had a tumultuous race and ended up at the back of the field. You're allowed 1 drop round. The final round of the season, though, it counts no matter what you do. And Joey, with how close the championships are, it means that it's going to be exciting. Let's talk about the GT3 Fixed Drivers' Championship to start with, where it is a 17-point advantage for Errol Urexoy. Ray Dominguez then second with Greg Doucette, Steven Martinez, Eric Kulaga, and technically Jared Keane and Matt Arnold all within mathematical reach of the championship.
Yeah, we're going to split a lot of math at you today. It's going to be a lot of numbers, it's going to be a lot of calculations, but we'll try and do it as quickly as we can. The most amount of points you can get for a win is 57. You get 55 points for a win, and there's a bonus point for the pole position and the fastest lap. So if Aero Urexoy finishes P10, he automatically wins the championship. He cannot lose, because nobody will be able to score as many points to outscore him. But Dominguez, Doucette, Martinez, Kulaga, Keane, and Arnold are all within mathematical contention. For the most part, most of them need to hope that Urexoy crashes or has a horrific day. And also, a big storyline at the top of the championship has been penalty points. Urexoy has lost 35 points because of penalties. Dominguez has lost 20 points because of penalties. This could have been a solved championship, or an even closer championship before now, but those penalty points have really shaken things up for both the top two.
It has. Do note, by the way, Matt Arnold, if Errol Urexoy grabs pole position, needs to win and grab the fastest lap and hope that Urexoy crashes out to have a chance of winning the championship. Those are one of those many different equations. Here's the team championship, where it's hard enough to have one driver be consistent. Now you need to have at least two work their way consistently over the course of the season. Vultures Motorsport South have already got this championship wrapped up and head into this final round, being able to focus just on that driver's championship.
I'm very thankful we don't have to calculate teams championship points, because that would be too difficult. It's also, I believe, been resolved in the Sprint Series as well, so we can put those by the wayside, we can congratulate our champions, and we can focus with every driver for themselves on that driver's championship, because this has been resolved, and we can wait until next season to maybe have a closer team fight.
Hopefully, indeed, because team championship's always very exciting. We look from the aerial view at Phillip Island. It is indeed an island. There is only one bridge that connects it to the mainland of Australia, and just on the coast of the island you can see how close we get to the water. But it is a fascinating track. Yes, more associated with the two-wheel machines, Joey, but one that in a GT3 machine poses plenty of challenges.
And it's not the most popular track in terms of use on iRacing, but it's a very popular track with the drivers, it's a very popular track for overtaking, and it's definitely suited well to every type of machinery, whether it's open wheel racing, whether it's GT3 racing, whether it's supercars. Everything can put on a good race at Phillip Island because of the combination of high-speed corners, there's elevation change, there's heavy braking zones at turn 4 and turn 10. It's a very, very good track, and it deserves more popularity. Hopefully we see it more often.
Hey, I do not disagree with that. I have enjoyed my fair share of racing here and have commentated on a couple of barn burners of races here, as well as the drivers work themselves around for their 20-minute open qualifying session. That means the draft definitely comes into play, but so does the dirty air. It's time to thank all those that make this possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. RaceBox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceBoxSimRacing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Mechasim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you are looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mechasim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed. Muradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit muradness.com. And Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. Qualifying at Phillip Island, ultra important. Passing here going to be difficult, and it is the type of track where, let's be real, you can very much see a breakaway in the early stages. Jared Keane, after the victory at the Circuit Barcelona, has really carried on that rich vein of form, currently sits on top. But you have to go back a while to find the championship leader, Errol Urexoy 6th, doing enough though, crucially, to keep himself with one hand on the crown.
Yeah, this is great for you, Rexoy, because none of the closest drivers to him in the championship are on pole right now. Ray Dominguez, I don't even see Ray Dominguez on our timing screens right now. He's all the way down in 21st place, so he's got a lot of work to do. And if Rexoy and Dominguez both don't get pole, that means Rexoy only has to finish 9th in the race. So that's one more position of buffer he has. But Ray Dominguez has been rapid in qualifying this season. He's got more poles than anybody, and I do not think he's going to stay in 21st. As I say that, he crosses the line to pick up 6/10, but it's still only P11. I think there's more time in it for Ray Dominguez.
Hey, another 6/10, and we'll see him up towards the front. One thing just to note off the top here is unfortunately some changes with our behind-the-scenes processes. We don't get to see the drivers' webcams, and Ray Dominguez one that we always enjoy seeing behind the scenes, how calm and focused these drivers tend to be. Rexoy wraps around that final corner. As mentioned, this is a track more associated with two-wheel machines and therefore some of the corner names as well, but see plenty of good racing with 4 wheels. Rexoy finds a 10th that will be enough to see him jump up in front of Andre Benatti, but still 4/10 off the fellow Porsche at the front.
And like I said, it's been qualifying dominance for him and Dominguez this season. 8 out of 9 poles so far this season were either taken by Earl Rexoy or taken by Ray Dominguez. The only other one was actually taken by Matt Arnold, who sits in 3rd when he won his race at Aragon a few weeks ago. Andre Benatti back in the Porsche, actually. He took the Ferrari last week at Le Mans because that had a real advantage. Decided to switch the car, take the 20-point penalty to go for a solid result there. Finished 5th. He's going to lose 20 more points because he switched to the Porsche this week.
At this point as well, for some drivers, they're just trying to figure out what they may want to drive. But of course, let's not forget, in a couple of weeks, in fact, in a week's time, iRacing will release its update, and these GT3 cars may not drive the same. It's always a bit of trepidation heading into an iRacing build week, combined with the excitement of new cars and potentially new tracks as well. Jeff Carollo setting up for what will be one of the final attempts in this qualifying session. And really, I think right now, it's an opportune time to take a look at those weather conditions. It's the early mornings in the winter in Australia, because let's not forget, down under, everything's upside down, including seasons.
It's incredible. I wish I could have Christmas in August and have the summer in December. It's an upside-down world down there, and I don't know. When John Williamson was singing about winter green and the steam coming out of his mouth, he was singing about the summertime. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's a crazy country, but it's going to be very, very good stuff for these drivers. Lots of high-speed corners around Phillip Island. Cold temperatures mean you're going to have more grip for longer. Tires aren't going to wear as much, and that is very, very good stuff for every single driver in the field. Jared Keane crosses the line, goes even faster, still has pole, picks up a couple of thousandths, and that's going to be scary for Matt Arnold and anybody else who wants to challenge him.
The thing with fixed setups means that you're all running the same amount of fuel. The longer you can go, the more fuel you can burn, and the cold conditions mean the tires will hang on just that little bit longer. We're heading in now to the final maps for the drivers that have just crossed the line, because once the checker flag flies, you can finish the lap that you're on, but it's no more after that. Kulaga, one of your Fords, saw one of the fan favorite getting his cheer on in the check. Going to find himself 2/10 of improvement, jumps up almost into the top 10, still gets one more lap to try and fight.
And unfortunately, Arjuna, this might be the swan song for the Ford. Eric Kulaga messaged me earlier this week, said this is probably going to be the final race he does in this car. He's going to switch to something more ideal for this GT3 Fixed Series next season, so I'm going to miss that Ford. He's got a beautiful throwback livery on it for the final race of it. It'll be remembered forever on a t-shirt. It won a race last season, so I hope it wins. I hope Kulaga goes 11th to 1st.
See if there are, how long it's going to take for a new Ford to come. Of course, there's the new Mustang GT3 car that is going to be unveiled in racing form. Is Caranja's going to be the first car to see the checker. Dominguez, by the way, was one of the final cars to see the white flag, and now we'll wait to see if anyone can find any improvement. Here's Matt Arnold, who is still in the Porsche, but coping quite well, all things considered, but that's not an ideal final lap in the session.
No, and that almost takes him out of championship contention. No, it actually does. The fact that Matt Arnold didn't get pole, that means that unfortunately his very, very long shot championship run from 56 points back, it's come to an end. But I think he knew coming into tonight that wasn't going to happen, but it's going to be a good bit of confidence. The fact that he was on pole, he got a race win this season, he's fighting for the podium now. We're going to look for him to be a legitimate championship contender next season.
Yeah, Michael Fowler is not going to find an improvement. I slightly misspoke when I said Matt Arnold needed to win and grab the fastest lap if Urexoy grabbed pole, but you're right, tiebreaker would always go the way of Urexoy, who's been, let's be honest, the most consistent driver this season. Dominguez has just been unable to stay out of trouble. Don't think we are seeing any drivers improve as the sun somewhat bakes the track down. As I say that, Dominguez jumps up to third, but I think that's the order pretty much set.
Well, Dominguez up to third is pretty big. He's ahead of Aero Urexoy, and that's where you want to be. When you have a 17-point gap to the championship leader like Ray Dominguez does, you want to out-qualify your rival, and you just want to hope that they run into trouble, and you can stay ahead of the trouble, and Ray Dominguez putting himself on row number 2 a little bit further ahead is going to make him a little bit more comfortable. So well done to him. And I also want to give a shout out as the checkered flag comes out. Ewan O'Leary, Race Spot's own, has decided to commentate, or has decided to actually qualify this week instead of just commentate. He's put at P24. He's ahead of multiple cars for once. He didn't take his initials EOL literally.
Nice. I did not even notice that. And now he's never going to hear the end of it. I hope he realizes that. He's 24th, but we're ready to go for the very final time this season with a championship to be decided. It leaves 35 minutes to play out, approximately 24 laps of racing in this final round of the Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series. Ready to go from down under. Let's take you through today's starting grid for the final time in 2023 Season 3. So Jared Keane leads the sea of Porsches at the front, and after grabbing the victory a couple of weeks ago, the 222 looking strong. Pete Moller alongside, while Ray Dominguez will try and put the pressure on Urexoy in the hunt for the championship. In the fight as well against the Porsches, the BMWs fight back. Matt Arnold, Greg Doucette, and then Urexoy, the points leader, make up the front 3 rows, while Andre Bernardi rolls alongside with Dale Peterson, the first of the Ferrari contingent, Walter Walden, and then Jochen Bakker through the top 10, with just 0.6 of a second splitting those front 5 rows. 11th for Buck Hamilton and 12th for Kulaga in the swan song of that Ford. 13th for Michael Fowler and 14th for John Jones. Nicholas Karangis finds himself 7/10 off the pace of pole in 15th, with Sully Saad alongside in that distinctive Porsche, while Felix Felice and Jeff Carollo share row number 9. Bookending the top 20, it's Andrew Venaro and then Steven Martinez, Glenn Vanko, David Morris, Ryan Chandler, and then Ewan O'Leary make up the front 12 rows. Kulaga, Sullivan, Schlosser, Pancari, Chandler, and then Dice. 2 seconds making up the rest of the top 30, with just 2 more cars, Sean Mulholland and then Chet Miller, that get ready to roll for what is going to be a full formation lap. Plenty of opportunity for these drivers to get some temperature into the tires in these cool winter conditions. One thing that you were saying, I think quite correctly, Joey, is the fact that at a track like Phillip Island, even with the grass being so close to the outskirts of the track, there is still plenty of runoff. So even if you have issues here, not necessarily going to find yourself with too much damage.
Yeah, it's a little bit VIR-esque in that way. There are walls you can hit, especially here on the front stretch, but in general, there's a lot of grass runoff, there's a lot of seas of gravel, and if you're lucky, you're not going to end up in the ocean all the way out there. But it's an important talking point, because in the PRL, on the road side, in the road series, you have to finish 50% of the race to score points. If you crash out before 50% of the race and you don't finish, you get 0 points. So when you're in a championship battle, you can't afford to DNF. You need to get every single point that you can get. So if somebody like Urexoy, for example, gets into an early incident, crashes out, suddenly the championship's wide open because he's coming home with 0 points.
There's the southern loop, the second corner of the track, which in my opinion is the most frustrating. Just goes on for so long, and if you get it wrong, it's very easy to run yourself out too wide and push yourself off into a bit of trouble. Now we head off into some switchback hairpins, and let's be real, this is the primary passing opportunity here.
And this right here is Chaos Central. This is where it can all go wrong. This is where you can end up in the hundreds and thousands of positions lost. It's a tight hairpin. It's a great passing zone at Miller Corner. And then up over the hill, it's another corner similar to Turn 2, where it's long, it's uphill, you're searching for the apex, and then you fire onto a little bit of a flat-out stretch through Turn 7 and 8, then up over the hill in Turn 9. This is the place to take your breath for just a moment, and then it gets a little bit more difficult coming down the hill into Turn 10.
You reminded me that we renamed Turn 4. It is now Miller Corner. But yes, this is where you steal your breath, because even with the assists that you get from these GT3 cars, the traction control, the ABS, this is the most perilous point on the lap. You see the rise, and it is a bit of a climb, and then a dive down the hill. The inside front tire always rises up off the ground, feels like it's locking, and then you've got to compress down the hill and funnel through those penultimate couple of corners. Joey, final round of the season, a champion to be crowned, putting you on the spot. Who comes out on top?
Aero Urexoy is going to win the championship. He's going to hang on, but I think it's Peter Mahler's day. He's finally going to get his first win of the season.
Well, what a wild ride that it has been. 2 championships to be decided, and in the GT3s, plenty of excitement to be found. Jared Keane at the front punches the throttle and gets us racing for the final time in the season of the GT3 Fixed action. Great start for Ray Dominguez, already alongside Mahler, but on the outside, crucially, and hoping to stay out of trouble. Hopefully not going to have too many troubles for those behind as well, because single file inside of the top 10, and now tidally through the southern loop, the field will swarm.
And these are critical moments off of turn 2, coming down into the hairpin a little bit later. This is going to be the critical moment for Urexoy. He needs to make sure he stays alive. He's getting aggressive, actually. Peeks to the inside of one of the Porsches for P5. He's going to try and make a move. He's not happy in 6. It's not going to happen. Everybody files into turn 4 here in hopes that they're not the first driver to get into a fender bender.
Kulaga saw his outside mirrors filled by John Jones, who really committed. They will fight in through the Cameron in Siberia. David Morse and Felix Felice, 2 drivers getting tangled up with issues. But inside of the top 10, only one swap to speak of. Greg Doucette jumps in front of Matt Arnold. Everyone else stays where they qualified.
It was a very organized start. It was very smart driving from everybody, and Dominguez was the only real driver who got super aggressive. Wasn't able to make the move on Peter Mahler, though. Still kind of feeling the ineffectiveness of the BMW compared to the Porsche at a track like this. He's going to have to slot back in line, and he's just going to have to wait a little while longer and hope he can save fuel just like he did at Le Mans last week to make the pass in strategy mode.
Saving fuel is something we always talk about, but it is definitely not easy at a track like this. It requires work, and it requires commitment from the driver to take advantage of the slipstream down the straights, but then not be compromised too much by the dirty air that you very much are contending with. Plenty of juking down that main straight. The Carangis and Carollo cycle their way through. But after what was a relatively tidy opening lap, let's go back and check out what happened to David Morse.
Oh, trying to go around the outside of Ewan O'Leary there, and I think makes a little bit of contact on turn in, fires it off the road, but you can see, this is what we were talking about at Phillip Island. Even with that little bit of contact, there's no wall there. There's a sea of gravel and grass and asphalt. All you have to do is make sure the car's still pointed straight, you don't cut half the track, and you're fine. But that's plenty of time lost for David Morse. He's not going to be happy. There's Felix Felice off the road as well, just feeding himself into the grass. You can always get understeer on the outside of turn 2.
It is so easy to do, and we mentioned as well with cold tires that that's a possibility. Oh. Dallas Sullivan somehow doesn't get clipped in that number 46, and also somehow stays out of the inside wall.
Yeah, Dallas Sullivan won the season finale at IRP, a last lap pass in the NASCAR Truck Series. Maybe he should have gone out on that high, but he wanted to get one more GT3 race in him, and well done to him. He's still out there, still plenty more paces to pick up in his final race of the season.
And with all the drivers still within 30 seconds of the leader, we are going to be talking about the potential for a window that the drivers will be able to slot in for some early pit stops. There's the Mercedes of Ryan Chandler. That is the 2 ends of Ryan Chandler, not only now behind... in fact, there is only 2... Ryan's the only family Chandler in the field, but the problem is, of course, you got the... Did we call him imposter Ryan Chandler with just 1 end?
He's Washington Ryan,
okay.
And 2 ends is Virginia Ryan. They were actually very close to each other on track. I think they were nose to tail when Virginia Ryan here in the 75 went off, so I wonder if there was some Chandler versus Chandler warfare, potentially.
I had to go scanning my timing screen. I don't see Reagan. My eyes don't deceive me, do they?
No, he's not here. He's letting his brother do all the work for the family name and prove that the Virginia Chandler clan is better than those darn imposters in Washington. But here it is. That is the other Ryan Chandler right ahead of him, but he didn't get involved. I think maybe a little bit of intimidation from 75 Mercedes Ryan Chandler.
The battle of the Ryans is 1 end better or 2 ends better will continue, and
Good question.
hopefully we get to see that battle continue in the future seasons. Matt Arnold getting right up to the bumper of Greg Doucette. Not sure how many spots there are still available in the GT3 Fixed and GT3 Sprint series, but let's not forget that we're going to be off for a couple of weeks, and then 2023 Season 4 will pick up, and sign-ups are open to everybody on the Precision Racing League website.
Indeed, I think GT3 Fixed is full for the most part. There might be 4 more positions for premium members, possibly, but GT3 Sprint has plenty of plenty of spots open as well, and we'll talk about that once GT3 Sprint rolls around later tonight, but that field looks insane. The field is good enough this season, but we've got some all-time titans of the PRL. iRatings in the 9,000s coming in, so no big deal. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah, our champion has really not had the best of defense, but it's just been because it's been such a competitive season, and only the 2 at the very top have been able to be up towards the front consistently. While Jarakeen lead by now 1 full second over Peter Moller, another 1.5 back to Dominguez, who is being hounded by Doucette, Arnold, Urexoy, Bernati. We're riding on board a little bit further back in the train, which does extend outside of the top 10. Waldo Walden rides in the Ferrari. Like mentioned, a week away from the iRacing build. Who knows what will happen to these cars in terms of driving characteristics? But it means that for every driver, if there is a change, we might not expect them to be back in the very same machine for the next season.
You never know, but Waldo Walden has always loved this Ferrari. Dale Peterson ahead loves that Ferrari as well, and Jeff Carollo's off the road in his Audi, though. That Audi has not been the car you really want so far this season, and there's even more contact behind. One of the Team Beef cars, Matt Schlosser, Ryan Chandler, they're all kicking off at the second to last corner.
It's chaos in that final sector, and now with just 7 minutes complete in the race, that does not look like a healthy Ferrari by any means, and you get the sneaking suspicion Ryan Chandler is going to be limping that car all the way back to pit lane. It kicked off with Sully Saad throwing a bit of an optimistic block, if we're being honest, on the 311 of Nicholas Carangis, and then as they all concertina up behind, throw the chaos grenade into the mix.
You see Ewan O'Leary getting through there in the BMW, and then Glenn Vanko, Ferrari Ryan Chandler, Matt Schlosser as well, just all coming onto the scene and just tripping over each other. Not much more to say about that, just huge checkup, huge accordion effect, and there's going to be some unhappy drivers at the back of the field, and we already know there's 2 drivers, both named Ryan Chandler, that have been in incidents in the first 10 minutes of this race. How unlikely is that?
But somewhat as expected, by the way. Attrition's been relatively low. Martinez and Chandler have just become the first couple of cars to head down towards the pit lane as Dominguez. I don't know if Dominguez is the cork in the bottle here, or if Greg Doucette's just struggling a bit more down through Lukey Heights and therefore giving opportunities for Matt Arnold to close, but we are seeing plenty of drama there. Sully Saad has been turfed off before he even got into turn 10 there.
Yeah, I imagine he threw himself off the road there. It's an easy corner to do that, and he's got Michael Kulaga to his inside trying to get by him, but they're going to resolve that. Matt Arnold's not giving up, though, because he knows he is faster than Greg Doucette. He knows he's faster than Ray Dominguez right now, and he wants a podium to finish off his season. Even if it might be too hard to catch the leaders, he knows he's fast enough for at least an all-Porsche podium, and he's hounding Greg Doucette through turn 2. Almost gets to his rear bumper in the middle of it. He's hoping that the straight line speed of that Porsche can give him some help coming into turn 4.
Straight line speed, not necessarily something that all these drivers will be thinking is too important with the really slow corners that you have, and then the medium speed Lukey Heights, but definitely will need every bit of it to try and get close. The draft, of course, did get turned down in strength earlier this year, something that not many drivers were too thrilled with. That was Steven Martinez, who had already had some sort of an issue, it would appear, given the very damaged nature of his car. Let's pick up the action slightly further back, and as, well, no, just runs wide by himself, and even though there is plenty of runoff, if you're going that fast, you'll eventually run out of it pretty quick.
Yep, turn 2 is a fast corner, but if you're that little bit too late in the brakes, there's almost no saving it. You're just throwing it off the road, and it's almost the same thing at turn 10 here, but Sully Saad actually got a little bit of oversteer, had to overcorrect, flung it off the road. He did end up saving it, but did lose a good couple of spots there, down to the end of the top 20. And then Jeff Carollo gets through, Venaro gets through, Ewan O'Leary gets through, and I think that was the resolvement of that issue. Saad needs some more issues ahead of him.
I do believe that Jeff Carollo then did end up having further issues. It was a little bit
Oh,
later
no.
on, and the Audi pendulums on him as they worked out of Siberia and parked in the kitty litter. Unfortunately, doesn't slow you down that much in iRacing, able to scoop out of it and roll on through. Ewan O'Leary is in 16th position, by the way. That's 8 positions gained from where he started. He's going to pick up another one because Michael Fowler's off the track.
Turn 2, it's been a party at Turn 2. It looks like an iRacing AI race when they always throw it off the road there in Turn 2. Everybody's making the same mistake, and Ewan is doing a fantastic job of making no mistakes. This is just like his race at Le Mans last week. I told him if he qualified, imagine where he could finish with his consistency, and he's doing exactly that.
The thing is, though, that I've seen plenty of races at Phillip Island where it's kind of like this, where there's not much really going on except for incidents, and maybe there's another one! Matt Arnold, well, in the Porsche, you see him spinning, and into the tires and out of the top 10.
He tried, he went for it, he was getting aggressive, but got a little bit too wide and clipped the grass. I don't actually see any damage on that Porsche, though, so maybe a little bit of damaged pride from trying too hard, but that looks clean, and he didn't collect anybody. But let's see what happened. Up over the top of the hill, trying to go around the outside, but there just wasn't room. Spins himself around. Just tried a little bit too hard.
He did hit the left rear, but I think that was about it. So relatively good car control and able to hold on. Doucette now has a bit of a buffer back to Urexoy, who sits 5th and in a perfect position, you would think, to just be biding the time, saving the fuel, sip away, and probably 10 minutes away from the pit stop window, like it was at the end of qualifying. Urexoy seemingly one hand on the crown.
No, I think Matt Arnold just crashed again. It's all gone wrong for him. It's turn 2 again. It's all falling apart. It was a great run, but those mistakes start to stack up. Once you make one of them, you heat the tires up, you start to get hot yourself in the cockpit. It's easy for them to start racking up.
I was telling Joey just before we went live about the time that I have taken drivers out here. It was at turn 1, to be fair, on lap 1, was on the outside, cut down a bit too aggressively, thinking I was clear. Utter pandemonium. It wasn't GT3s, by the way. This is just one of those tracks. Matt Arnold slides off. Not the first time we've seen that today. Definitely not the last. 23 minutes to go, and we've still got another 40-minute race after this.
And just for the record, by the way, I threw away my first PRL win in F3 in the AM category in turn 4 because I spun it around under braking. So you can do that anywhere on the track.
Okay, fair. Yeah, this. I feel very confident that this track takes bravery in a car with 4 wheels. It takes even more bravery when you're on 2 wheels, though.
It does, and you know the reason I spun in that race was because I was getting chased down by one of the fastest drivers in PRL open wheel history, a guy named Kevin Santana. Kevin Santana is signed up for this GT3 Fixed series next season.
Oh, wow. That's going to be fun. Dale Peterson's off as well, by the way. And now waiting, backing up calmly, using his relative box. You love to see it.
Well done. Dale Peterson, by the way, podium sitter last week at Le Mans, really taking advantage of that fast Ferrari. Unfortunately, the Ferrari kind of going back to its normal roots here. It's all kicking off. Joachim Backer, John Jones. I think Waldo Walden was involved in something. We were talking about how calm it was for the first 10 minutes. That has ceased to be the case.
Commentator's curse?
Maybe.
Well, we'll take a look at the replay in a few moments' time. Carollo is now back on track. John Jones is back on track as well. Plenty of drivers finding themselves on the green stuff. There is plenty of runoff, and that's why only 2 find themselves in pit lane. Might end up being 3. Jeff Carollo's pretty torrid day does seem to be continuing. Sneak a peek at the replay machine, Joey. Talk us through what you see.
Yeah, John Jones in the highlighter yellow Porsche, Joachim Backer in the black and white cookie car. Waldo Walden behind sends a dive. It wasn't his fault. It was John Jones getting into the back of Joachim Backer. Kulaga and Walden and Buck Hamilton do a good job of getting around that, but just a little bit of an argument through turn 4. And Dale Peterson, on the other hand, all on his lonesome, right ahead of Waldo Walden, actually. Waldo had a very scary sequence of quarters there.
And while that happened, Matt Arnold is officially back down on pit lane. So after what's been a pretty impressive season for the driver that came in with Copium as his middle name, unfortunately coping from the sidelines, just Way too much speed, way too much overcommitment, not for the first time today through Lukey Heights, and I think he said enough's enough for 2023 Season 3.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. When you start making those mistakes, you start getting hot under the collar, especially when it's your first season in a league. It tends to stack up like that. Just got the Brett Punkari intimidation that time. But he'll be back next season. I do see that he's signed up. He's on the precipice of the sign-ups, though, so he might get bumped out, might have to do something about that. But I do hope we see him next season. At times this season, he was ridiculously fast, almost unbeatable at Aragon. So he could definitely fight for a championship with one season under his belt.
What are you racing in next season, Joey? Have you made your decision
Xfinity
yet?
time. Xfinity's back.
Just Xfinity, or are we going to get you in something else?
No.
No?
Road course racing takes too much practice. It takes too much skill, especially nowadays when you've got people with 9,000 iRating in the Sprint Series and F3, even in the Fixed Series. These guys are too good for me, so I'm sticking to my guns.
I feel like the Monday... big send from Greg Doucette. Ray Dominguez not going to fight that too hard. It's BMW on BMW action. It's 3 seconds off of the top two. And now you change for that third step of the podium.
Ray Dominguez lifted off very early there in turn 2, so I do wonder, is he doing the same fuel saving he did at Le Mans last week to finish, or to win the race rather? Because that was a big lift, and Aero Rexoy might be doing the same thing. Andre Bonatti gets by him into turn 4.
Yep, so we think are seeing some calls on fuel mileage here. We have seen the likes of Dominguez be very good. Very, very good at the fuel mileage strategy, so see how it plays out. We're only 5 minutes away or so from probably seeing the first drivers really commit with the early pit stop. Just to confirm, Matt Arnold joins Steven Martinez and Ryan Chandler in retiring from this race. 28 machines still out there and running, leading to what is a relatively busy track. And so even for the likes of your leader, Jared Keane, who was cycling out of that final corner, a pit stop now would likely leave him in some traffic given the short nature of the pit lane here.
But you've got to think about with those moving ants there on your screen. If Matt Arnold were to, or if Jared Keane rather were to pit right now, I'd put him basically around the 66 of Eric Kulaga, a little bit further back, maybe with the 311 of Nicholas Karangis. So he's going to be watching his relative. He's going to be listening to his crew chief and saying, I'm not going to come in until I absolutely have to. But if you're one of these guys a little bit further back, like Andrew Venaro, who's coming in right now, if you're in one of these packs like he was, you might want to come in early, get some track position into the back of the field, and do your undercut that way.
That is Ryan Chandler with one end, by the way, who is leaving pit lane in his Ferrari. So great to see the spirit of endurance racing jumping back out there even when the car is damaged to try and finish the race and finish the season, to be fair as well, on a high. Kulaga's +5, Karangis is +6, Ewan O'Leary's +13. We won't talk too much about that because, you know, he's a commentator. We don't want to commentators curse him. Can you commentator curse a commentator?
That's a good question. That's
did you see the smoke in the background?
Karangis is off, and that is going to be P10 for Ewan O'Leary. He's up there, but Karangis finds another corner to go off. That's turn 5. I don't think we've seen anybody spin there today, but Karangis gets to be the first, and definitely not the last.
I think we've seen assistance at that corner, but yeah, definitely not on the entry, the spin. The exit we did see, was it Alan Dice or Dallas Sullivan, excuse me, in the 46. Same team, so I was at least somewhat on the ballpark. There's, found downshift.
It might have been. Maybe just a little bit too much speed into the corner behind Buck Hamilton there. We'll ride on board with him coming into turn 5. No. Didn't clip the grass either, just sent it in a little bit too hard. The rotation comes around, and poor old Nicholas Karangis joins the fray of the many, many drivers who have made mistakes. But two guys who haven't made mistakes. Ewan, we've given him enough praise, but 5 seconds up the road, Waldo Walden is having the best race he's ever had in PRL GT3 Fixed. He was a guy who would be happy with a top 20 qualifying result previously, and he's running legitimately in the top 10. This is a fantastic race for Waldo, and it's been a fantastic couple of weeks.
Qualified there as well.
Oh, Ewan just crashed.
Ewan O'Leary. Oh, it's Ewan O'Deary today. I stole that one from you.
Yeah, and he didn't crash. I gotta correct myself. He just offed it, so it wasn't that bad. But yeah, it came for everybody. He's not the last one to make mistakes. Still top 15, but into turn 2, too late in the brakes, off the road. Welcome to the club. He's officially a driver now.
True, that he has indoctrinated himself into the club. Fortunately, as well, with the rejoin, didn't end up popping even further across the track. There was definitely a bit of a danger there. Urexoy in 6th spot, right on the back of Andre Bernardi. These two the closest inside of the top 10, where they have very much stretched on out. The conditions, as expected, slightly warming up, but not at a rate that is noticeable because, of course, it is winter in Australia. Look at the wind, 19 miles an hour, though. That's pretty strong.
It's quite blustery, if you ask me.
Oh, no.
So, especially through these high-speed corners, you never think about wind on iRacing, but when it's that bad, when you're through high-speed corners, it definitely comes into consideration. Especially if it's a headwind versus a tailwind, you gotta make sure you move your braking point back a little bit. But you did see two of our Ferraris in, Waldo Walden and Buck Hamilton. Ewan O'Leary and the BMWs in as well. And also, we're past halfway, so Urexoy has officially scored enough points, and that probably eliminates some more people.
Yes, that's a good point. We can go and work away on that championship math and see if we can figure out the updated scenario. But like mentioned, for a driver that needed effectively just the top 9, running exactly where he needs to do so. 15 minutes now officially left in the season. Who's going to come out on top in a campaign where, given that the season prior to this saw domination in the form of, what was it, 6-7 victories from Mr. Uptown Gary Brown, Urexoy Dominguez have shared 3 victories apiece, and then Jared Keane, Matt Arnold, and John Jones have all had victories. It's been nice to see the victory spread out just that little bit more.
Yeah, there's definitely been parity, and it is kind of deceiving as Jared Keane and Peter Mahler do finally bring it in from the race lead. They've found a pack of clean track to make sure they don't come out in traffic. But as I mentioned at the head of the broadcast, Urexoy has lost 35 points due to penalties, due to some start infractions and some crashes he's caused. Ray Dominguez has lost 20 points for the same reason. They should both be far elevated above the championship, but consistency matters, and not making those mistakes matters, so they're both going to take that into the next season and hope they can be even more dominant without those mistakes.
Do note as well that we use the long pit lane exit. At least some people do. Jared Keane used a long pit exit. Peter Mahler did not, and it's going to mean that Jeff Carollo gets a face full of dirty air midway through turn number 1, but relatively clean air for Jared Keane, the net race leader, popping out of pit lane. So wait for Doucette, Dominguez, Bernardi, and then the rest of the top 8 to make their way down to the lane. In that middle sector of the lap is the 77 BMW, who has pulled away a healthy margin from Ray Dominguez.
This BMW versus BMW battle, it's not really the thing we've been used to seeing this season. Ray Dominguez has been the top BMW. He's the only BMW who's won a race this season. Greg Doucette has kind of been the consistent guy who's picked up results, who's picked up podiums, but he has been very, very quick today, and he might just get a podium totally on pace, just like he did a little bit earlier in the season. He brings it down pit lane. I think Dominguez is going to stay out. He's going to go for one more time around. That's how much fuel he's been saving. Everybody else behind him is going to come in, though.
This is definitely a pit lane where you need to execute relatively well, so that is going to be something just to keep in mind. Doucette hits the marks all the while. Jared Keane has wrapped out of that final sector. Did have a brief, scary moment with John Jones, who ran off the track, and now dances that car through the final corner with Doucette. 11.8 seconds, a pretty decent stop, half a second shorter, stationary, and going to be using that longer pit lane. The 222's already gone by, but Peter Mahler's going to be directly alongside Doucette, who funnels into the dirty air.
That's very interesting. Doucette comes out closer to Jared Keane and Mahler than he did when he was before the pit stop cycle rolled around. If Ray Dominguez can have a short enough pit stop, I'm not going to count him out for potentially being in the fight for the win here. Just depends on how much fuel he was able to save. But now, if it is just down to these two guys between Keane and Mahler, this is when all the strategy goes out the window. This is when it comes down to pace and pace alone and minimizing those mistakes, and Peter Mahler's hunting for his first win.
Really, really tense final stages here. That's what happened to John Jones, by the way. And you just see, there's Jared Keane.
That would have been scary.
I'm sure there was no nerves there on anyone's side.
Did Keane go off there? Did he clip the grass?
I don't think so. I think that was just a trick of the camera. Who did go off was a big wiggle for Nicholas Carangis.
I centered it there on the grass for a moment, but kept the momentum going. Ray Dominguez and the other BMW, by the way, is down pit lane now. He saved, I think, 4 seconds more fuel than everybody else at Le Mans last week, so we could see some dramatics from Dominguez again here. It was 11.8 seconds for Jared Keane, I believe. Ray Dominguez is going to come out of the box with 10.6. It's a short stop, and is it short enough?
But the momentum's on the side of those already out on track, and Jared Keane flies on through. Dominguez feeds out in front of Doucette, but the momentum carries the Throttle Thursday 77 back into the podium steps. But what was at one point a 2-car train is back up to 4 in the closing 11 minutes.
Well, that's not what Dominguez wanted. He wanted to be in the lead of the race. He wanted that track position, but right now he sits 2 positions ahead of Aero Urexoy. His only hope right now is that Urexoy has a large accident and finishes about 30th, so that may be championship over. Also, with the 50% of the race being covered off there, Urexoy is guaranteed to score points. That does unfortunately eliminate Jared Keane, Eric Kulaga, and Steven Martinez from championship contention. It was a long shot in the beginning, but a win is going to be just the same for Jared Keane. He's going to be happy enough with that.
And it's going to be a fresh slate for everyone when we get underway provisionally on what I believe is September the 19th for the next season. There is Ewan O'Leary getting passed by Michael Kulaga's number 82. That's on that run up into Miller Corner. Now sweeping on through. Of course, after the pit stops, some drivers going longer than others. Longest pit stop on the board, 15.9 seconds. That's for Felix Feliz. 5 seconds longer than Ray Dominguez in a 35-minute race. That is a remarkable amount of fuel saving.
Ray's been the fuel meister lately, and it's interesting because at the start of the season we saw Ray Dominguez as the guy who was very, very fast. He was very, very aggressive. He wasn't necessarily the strategy guy or the fuel-saving guy, but then Le Mans came last week, decimated everybody else on fuel-saving, dominantly won the race after the pit strategy came around, and did the same today. Didn't quite win him the race, but Jeff Carollo, who's already a lap down, goes around to the background.
And I think that might be Carollo's season done as well. It's definitely not been an easy day in that Audi, and I don't even know how you necessarily get there if you're Ryan Chandler, but through the final corner, there's a Mercedes somewhere there.
Yeah, that's Mercedes Ryan Chandler versus Ferrari Ryan Chandler. He's not had a good time in this last sector of the track and throws it off the road to make sure he doesn't collect Alan Dice. And Sully Saad's around as well. Neither of these guys have had very friendly days at Phillip Island.
Our replay machine is getting a workout today, isn't it?
It is. It's flipping out. But Ryan Chandler, especially in that third sector, I feel like we've got to have a camera just in that third sector for him.
Beauty of sim racing is we have infinite cameras. Oh, another loose car, and now that's how you get that far lost.
There's a tree in the infield there. It looked like he ended up in the forest of Australia. He was going to be hanging out with a koala in there. But that's hot tires. That's the mistake stacking up, and poor old Ryan Chandler has yet another issue. And Sully Saad up in turn 10. Is this the same place where he made his previous mistake? No, it's actually turn 2. Just barely clips the grass. The barest of touches, and that's enough to loop it around.
I don't even think the grass is what unsettled the car. I think that was the momentum shift more than anything, and the way that he was so desperately trying to get away from putting any of the rubber in the grass. Anyway, 8 minutes left to run means I think we are down into the maybe final 5 laps of this race. 1.2 between Keane and Mollard. Doucette still very much in the fight for second, but I get the sneaking suspicion if Jared Keane can hold where he is with the dirty air that is being fed off the back of that 222, it's very difficult for anyone to get close enough to have a think about a move at the front.
Yeah, Peter Moller needs to basically be within half a second if he wants to really use the full effect of the draft on the front stretch and down to the turn 4. So he needs to get that a little bit closer, and also, honestly, probably needs to hope for a mistake from Jared Keane, because when Keane has gotten out front this season, like he did at Barcelona, he hasn't made mistakes. He hasn't bobbled. He hasn't let anybody attempt to get to his inside. He's just run away. He's been consistent, and he's held the lead. So for Mahler, all you can do is keep putting the pressure on and hope that mistake finally comes. And if it doesn't, he'll still be happy with second, because he only made his debut this season halfway through in round 6 with the late signups, and he's put on some great performances ahead of next season, where hopefully he'll be back.
Has Ray Dominguez short-filled himself, because he is 2 seconds off the back now of Greg Doucette, 4 seconds off of the lead, and 10.6 seconds is a aggressive pit stop.
I don't think he has. I think he's just been that good. I think this is just kind of a regression to the mean for him. Because remember, when he came into the pits, he was 2 seconds behind Greg Doucette. He's back to 2 seconds behind Doucette. I just don't think he has the pace to fight for the podium, unfortunately.
Well, it's been a valiant effort for Dominguez. This season has definitely shown the speed. 5 top 5s coming into the night. 4 pole positions, the same as your Rexoy, of course, 3 wins as well. 5 fastest laps, though, in 9 races. I think that is the one that shows that...
Rapid Ray.
Rapid Ray, I do like that nickname. But it shows that when there are those windows in these races where so often we are saving fuel, when there are the windows to go fast, Dominguez knows how to turn the wick up.
And think about this. He had a 20-point penalty for a collision earlier on in the season. If he didn't get that penalty and Urexoy did get his 35-point penalty still, Ray Dominguez would be in the lead of the championship right now, and he would be winning the championship right now. So he's probably going to be ruining the mistakes he made. Arrow Urexoy is going to be very happy that he did make that mistake, because that kind of evened things out. But that's going to be scary coming into next season, because Dominguez will be back, Urexoy will be back, a lot of other drivers will be back. It's going to be a lot of the same guys up at the top of the table, and if you want to win the championship, you got to get through them.
I'm just going to say that you better, you know, apologize to Errol Urexoy in the hopefully championship. I'm knocking on the wood because there is a commentator's curse right now, and I bring it down on him, I'm going to feel atrocious. But you better apologize for the nicknames that you've thrown Errol's way on occasion.
Have I? Oh yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, he's living up to it. But if he wins this season, he's not going to be. He's going to have to delete the wreck out of his name.
Yes.
He's going to be Errol Usoy next season, and it'll be a whole new guy.
Yes, no, you at least I think recognize the puns that I was referring to there.
Yeah, we're past those. He's been good ever since. Ever since Spa, he's been good.
Ultimately, as well,
Road Atlanta.
A lot of the incidents that Errol was in were just the virtue of how hard he was pushing up towards the front. The pace was always there, right? It was about getting that consistency, which is that next evolution for so many, and that's what we've seen here in this season. Very fascinated how next season's going to play out. Under 4 minutes means 3 laps to rumble for these drivers, and I was under the assumption Jared Keane would be comfortable. I feel like that assumption's falling away in front of my eyes.
No, Mahler's catching him. He's not catching him at a rate of speed I would be especially worried about, but he is still catching him. He's within 0.6 of a second now, and critically, as you see that number go down at the top of the ticker, he's in draft range, but we've got trouble in the middle of the field. Michael Fowler in turn 10, Andrew Vanaro's around as well, and Saad. Oh, that's going to be a big crash for Sully Saad.
Are these separate incidents? Sully Saad, not for the first time at Lukey Heights, has an issue, but alongside with... I believe that was Michael Kulaga able to work off the corner. Goodness. Well, there's one bit of drama here at Phillip Island. There's got to be more, doesn't there?
There's always got to be more. I think that they weren't separate incidents. I think they may have all been slightly related, but you know, a lot of drivers having trouble with turn 10 tonight. Mahler has gotten closer, though. He was as close as 0.3 to Jared Keane in the draft coming into turn 4. If he can stay that close to the line, we're going to have 2 laps to go. He might have another chance. But here's what happened to Michael Fowler. Same thing that's happened to multiple drivers tonight. Up over the top of turn 10, loops it around. Vanaro does the same thing with the target fixation. Turn 9, rather, actually, is Lukey Heights. Turn 10 comes later. And then Sully Saad, target fixation of his own. Does a great job of saving it, though.
I'm claiming there's oil on the track, especially given that the next lap by, there's suddenly a clean surface. So get that the appropriate flag out there, Mr. Marshall, and we will sort things out. 0.7, the margin restored, though, out of that final corner. Difficult to get close enough. This is the thing about GT3 cars. They've evolved so much. They've got so much aerodynamic forces now that the dirty air is definitely something that you're dealing with. 2 laps to work. Peter Mahler sees that first victory dangling in front of him.
He does, and as I mentioned, Peter Mahler only made his debut when the late signups went up after round 5, so he's not been fighting for the championship this season. He's just been fighting for race results in the final 5 rounds of the season, and he has got them. He's got a 4th place finish, has been absolutely rapid in qualifying, and if he can get a podium to finish this off, or even a win, he will be back for the full season next season, and that'll be great for his confidence. Greg Doucette as well. If he can get a podium here in this BMW, maybe we see him next season go to a more primed car to fight for the championship, and he'll be up there as well.
A little bit wide was Jared Keane out through turn number 4, but a little bit tighter and more aligned on the racing groove through the cambered in turn 5. Once again, snaking up in towards the middle sector. Penultimate time, diving up and then down in towards Lukey Heights. Jared Keane looks comfortable. Jared Keane looks ready to grab a second victory this season, wrapping around to take the white flag, the final lap of the 2023 Season 3 Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series.
Jared's done a great job of pulling away here. He didn't feel the pressure of Mahler. He didn't bobble with it. He just saw him and ran away. Peter Mahler might actually be feeling the pressure of Greg Doucette more than anything. They're only 3/10 separated as Keane's going to drive off into the sunset. It's going to be a battle for second behind him.
Is it going to be a send from that BMW, which traditionally you'd think might be more aggressive on its tires, but in these cool conditions, maybe firing them up just that little bit better. And a big send, contact to Peter Mahler, who through the southern loop finds himself in the wall.
Peter Mahler not going to be happy with that. The angle didn't really give us any ideas of what happened there. Going to have to wait for a replay for maybe an aerial shot to see who moved over, but it was an aggressive move from Greg Doucette. He'd made that aggressive move into turn 2 before, and here it is. Peter Mahler was actually losing it on his own. He was getting all sorts of loose on the exit of 1, and I think that's what caused that. Here it is, clips the curb, and he got loose on his own and hit Greg Doucette. That was not Greg's fault.
An unfortunate incident to end what was looking like a really fun battle to the end, and even if you don't have wheel-to-wheel fighting, does not mean that there is not plenty of battling to be had. You can ignore the flag, that the checkered flag. You can ignore the flag in the top left corner of your screen. Jared Keane still got the final couple of corners to go before he sees the line and grabs the win.
This will be great for his confidence. I keep mentioning confidence coming into the next season because even if you don't win a championship, if you win round 7 of a season and round 10 of a season, you're going to be one of the guys they look at to beat for the championship next season.
It's 2 wins in the final 3 races for Jared Keane, finding his footing to build for 2023 Season 4. But as he takes the checkered flag, it's Errol Urexoy who wraps himself around the final corner and brings himself to become the 2023 Season 3 GT3 Fixed champion.
This was always his championship from day 1. Heartbreak at Watkins Glen, lost his first win, then finally got his mojo back 1 week later, and since then, even with some bobbles, even with some points penalties, nobody has ever come close to him in the championship. This was the Errol season, and I fear him next season.
Dominguez alongside the 2 rivals pushed each other all the way to the very end, and they'll be back next year to do it again, but for now they can settle into a couple of weeks off and then come back and see what's all changed in the intervening couple of weeks. Getting into the mix as well, you've got some of those other drivers who are wrapping up what's been an eventful season. Let's not forget, as much as there's plenty of stories to talk about at the front of the championship, Joey, everyone in this field has a story to talk about at the end of 10 weeks of racing.
That's the beauty of the PRL. You've got a mix of drivers who have been here forever, a mix of drivers who made their debuts this season, like Ray Dominguez. There's lots and lots of stuff to go around. Sean Mulholland crossing the line there, one of the series organizers of the PRL. But that's everybody. That's GT3 Fixed booked for the season.
I think we are seeing a bit of a photo shoot. The Ford that we will not be seeing in the future alongside, and they're all squeezing in and trying to get themselves lined up. I think in that...
I don't think Venaro's a teammate. I think he's got to get out of there.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Vulture Motorsports crew trying to line up. 3 by 2 they are. And the photo ceremonies will...
Maybe he is a teammate. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you are wrong. But I just trust you implicitly when anything PRL related comes out of your mouth. There is a great sight. The drivers just getting themselves in that photo mindset. We'll grab a chat, of course, with our winner, with our champion. Let's take a look at those race results very quickly. 1.01 seconds effectively at the end, with Doucette able to take advantage of the slight slide from Peter Mahler that then saw the contact and the drama. Dominguez, Bernardi, Urexoy, the top 5 as a champion, did just enough to hold on to the machine. Kulaga, Walden, Backer, Hamilton, and then Felice make up the rest of the top 10. We'll cycle through very quickly so we can dive into our post-race chat. Pancari, Saar, Jones, Karangas, Kulaga, Fowler, O'Leary, Peterson, Venaro, and Sullivan make up your top 20. All those drivers on the leading lap. That also includes the likes of David Morse, Glenn Banco, and then Sean Mulholland. Peter Mahler does not see the checkered flag. He unfortunately takes the toe, finishes 1 lap down, while Alan Dice finishes in front of Ryan Chandler and Ryan Chandler, Jeff Carollo, Steven Martinez, and Matt Schlosser. Plenty of cars having plenty of drama. Matt Arnold and then Chet Miller will make up the very final drivers in our final race of the season. Let's not dawdle about any longer. It's been a while in the making for Errol Urexoy, our champion, chatting with Joey Tebben.
Indeed he is, Errol. It seemed like from week one this was your championship. There's been some ups, there's been some downs, but it's finally over. How does your first championship in the PRL feel?
Woo! Oh man, feels good. Feels good. Just want to say thanks to you guys for a great broadcast. I want to say thanks to all the guys on the team. I shared this one with them. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And then especially I want to say thanks to my wife, who puts up with this every week and all my practice. And I want to say hey to my kids. So.
We say hey to them as well. We've already got to look to next season, by the way, Earl. There's not much of a break, just 3 weeks until GT3 Fixed kicks off again. Obviously, you're going to be the favorite coming into next season, but how are you prepping for your championship defense?
You know, I'm waiting to see how that BOP comes out. I'm hearing through the rumor mill also that we may actually get a new GT3 for Season 4, so I'm waiting to see if that actually happens. So, you know, it's all going to depend on that, and then coming up to speed quickly on whatever car I get into.
Well, Errol, finally got your first win this season, finally got your first championship this season. Congratulations, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
All right, thanks, guys.
Errol Urexoy coming home. P5 in the race, but the championship all the same. But we've got P1 in the race as well. Jared Keane, what a way to end the season. Just total dominance here at Phillip Island. Pole to the win. You and this Porsche seem to mesh with this track pretty well.
Yeah, it's a good combination. It really is. The car really wants to go here. And, that's so fun.
And I don't know the championship calculations right now, but I believe after this performance, it's going to be P4 in the championship for you. So after a little bit of a rocky start with some bad luck, you've got to feel pretty good with the strong run you've had in these last 4 races.
Yeah, I'll take it. It's kind of one of those seasons, what could have been. I can point back on 2 or 3 mistakes, simple one spinning at the final turn at Fuji. I've mentioned this in the last interview. So there's just a couple of things that stick in my mind that I'm going to try and get it right for next season.
Well, Jared, a couple of weeks break. We hope you'll enjoy the break, and we'll see you next season to maybe fight for that championship.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You do a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Keane. And his initials might be JK, but I don't think he was just kidding there. We'll talk to one more driver real quick here. Finished third here tonight, rather. Second in the championship, Ray Dominguez. What a season it's been. 3 wins for you. So close at the end, but you've still got to feel decent about P2 in the championship, I imagine.
Definitely do, guys. I definitely do it.
Well, Ray, next season's coming up. You and Errol have fought for the championship and for the wins all season long. Do you think next season will be your championship season?
Definitely be more consistent next season, and I hope that, something new comes out so the Porsche is thrown out the window. But if it stays like this, it's going to be tough for me next season.
Well, I'm sure BMW Ray Dominguez is hoping that BMW comes out on top. Congrats on second in the championship, Ray. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, guys.
Ray Dominguez coming home on the podium in the race, podium in the championship. And what a season we've had, Arjuna, and what a season we're going to have next season, because the same characters are going to be back to do this some more.
Have you seen Ray Dominguez's helmet, by the way?
I haven't. We're going to have to do a zoom in here. Let's see. Through the windows it's coming by. Yeah, I can't tell.
It's wonderful. What a shot that we get of it. All those little details, love it. It was great to have a little chat with the drivers to wrap up what's been, let's be honest, an eventful championship. Yes, the story is about Urexoy grabbing his first win. Great day, of course, as well for the Vulture Motorsports crew walking away with the team championship. So many of those drivers will be returning next season, Joey. Maybe a new GT3 car, probably some BOP updates that these drivers will be testing, and maybe some new tracks as well. Can't wait to see what we're going to be in store for when the GT3 Fixed Series returns next season, because after Gary Brown's promotion last season, we actually have a champion coming back to defend.
We've got shades of Michael Terrafino from a couple seasons ago. He won one championship, he won another championship after that, and then they said, you know what, you're moving up to Sprint. So could that happen to Urexoy? Could that happen to Dominguez? Or could we see a whole new champion next season? You've got guys like Kevin Santana, who are very fast coming back. Colin McKenzie, Luke Davis, go down the list of names. Tyler Graff, who we know from elsewhere on RaceSpotTV. All of them are going to be fighting for the championship next season.
There is going to be a helter-skelter battle, and I think I saw a provisional schedule. It's all going to start where? The Temple of Speed Monza. We always know how things are going to go there. Never say never when it comes to the level of excitement that we will expect. But before we can focus on the future, it's time to focus our attention once more on Phillip Island and another championship showdown. The GT3 Fixed Series was wild. The GT3 Sprint Series maybe even wilder. 2 drivers split by 17 points in the Fixed Series. 5 drivers split by 17 points going into the final 40 minutes of racing here live on RaceSpotTV. It is an identical schedule that these drivers have been working their way through, so not really much to talk about in terms of interest there. We've already said basically everything that we need to talk about. What we can talk about, though, is the fact that the 2 that lead the championship have done it by, yes, winning races, but by also being at the front consistently. 7 top 5s for each of Carl Modoff and Vincent Trepignet, but Boris Ovando, Beckham Jasir, and Dominic Olivier, and even Simon Theriault, all mathematically still have a chance here today.
Yeah, gonna make me faint here with all the numbers I'm gonna have to think about here. But at the top of this table, you've got the 2 titans of PRL GT3 racing, Carl Modoff and Vincent Trepignet. Winningest driver in GT3, Carl Modoff. Second winningest, Vincent Trepignet, or at least tied for second. Those guys have been the fastest this season, but there's been, again, some mistakes. There's been some bobbles throughout the season. Vincent Trepignet took a 10-point penalty for taking out Jeremy Gonzalez at Road Atlanta. He could be in the championship lead right now. Boris Ovando took a 10-point penalty for taking out Vincent Trepignet at Watkins Glen. He could only be 3 points off Carl Modoff right now. There's been all sorts of stuff that could have changed this season, but it's all ended up with those top 5 separated by only 17 points, and Simon Theriault as well in mathematical contention, hoping that Carl Modoff and basically all of his competitors run into trouble.
And of course, we'll talk plenty more about the championship equation and what various drivers will need to do as we work our way into the qualifying session and into then the 40 minutes of racing that lies ahead. Once again, though, the relative ease that we have for the team championship is contrasted by the difficulty that we have for the Drivers' Championship. Another team championship that Joey already said was done and dusted, 159 points between Advanced Motorsports and Precision Racing Esports Black. I think the thing that is maybe the most impressive about Advanced Motorsport is in a championship where you can have 3 drivers entered and only take the fastest 2 in terms of points week in, week out, they're doing it with 2 drivers who are consistently staying out of trouble.
Yeah, you read my mind there, Arjuna. They've had no margin for error, but luckily there's been very few errors for them. But with Precision Racing Esports, they've kind of got their efforts split. Boris Ovando, who's 3rd in the championship, is a purple driver. Dominic Olivier, who's 5th in the championship, is a Precision Racing Esports black driver. So they've all been kind of separated, and they've also been the only 2 drivers who have finished the season. Everybody else has kind of been on a partial season with some missed races.
Yep, that has definitely been the case. You see it in the summer a little bit. Sim racers do go out and touch grass occasionally, it would seem, although as much as we try and discourage that here on RaceSpotTV, there is plenty of grass, though, that surrounds this Phillip Island facility. Joey, we've already seen 35 minutes of racing, so we probably have a pretty good sense for what to expect, but now we let the drivers tweak the setups, work on the car to make it slightly more comfortable for their style of driving.
This is when I wish we had a telestrator, because we saw all those mistakes in Turn 2, in Turn 9. We're going to see more of those probably, because there is a difference in setups. There's some drivers who are going to try and take advantage of that long front stretch, the long straight after Turn 2. They're going to go low downforce. Some other drivers, they're going to go high downforce for basically the whole middle sector. How do those meet in the middle? It's going to be interesting to see who goes for which and which one comes out on top.
Qualifying once again is underway, and the drivers have a 20-minute and an open qualifying session. Joey, what does that mean for them in terms of how they're all going to be trying to funnel for some track position? Once again, there are more than 30 GT3 machines rumbling around the track.
Traffic is what it's going to mean for them. You can even see it from this helicopter view. You can see little ants on the track, but you can still see that everybody's in traffic right now. It's a short track, it's a lot of cars, and trying to find clean track to get a lap done is almost impossible. Everybody's going to get held up at least one time in an open qualifying session like this. It was even more treacherous at the start of the season when we had more cars, but I do love open qualifying in the PRL. I know it makes the drivers unhappy sometimes when they get held up, but It shakes up the grid. It adds a little bit of excitement. I'm a big fan.
Challenge that everyone has to deal with, right? And I think the thing that they at least have a benefit of is a 20-minute qualifying session. Let's make it clear. 40-minute race, 20-minute qualifying. They get half the race time to go out there and qualify. If you cannot get one clean lap out there, I think that probably is an unfortunate circumstance. It does mean that there's pressure on Joey when you do get that one lap to go.
Yeah, and I know I've felt that pressure plenty of times. Back when I was racing F3 in the PRL with open qualifying, I would be the driver who kept getting the off tracks, kept getting held up, kept throwing it off the road, and then would have to make that one final lap count. But these are the best GT3 drivers in the PRL. They're some of the best GT3 drivers in league competition and iRacing altogether. They know how to deal with that pressure. They know how to watch their relative, and some of them probably have a crew chief or a spotter looking out to give them the gaps in the track. And that is very, very helpful to have some other people on your side to do those calculations for you to find clean air.
Absolutely. That is one of the most important things that you can have. Someone outside the car to relieve yourself from the stress of having to think about things and to be able to focus your attention on truly what ends up mattering. We can talk to you now about those results so far in the qualifying session with just under 4 minutes left to go. It's not a surprise to see the two names at the top. It is Vincent Trepanier that sits on provisional pole, behind him Karl Modoff, but the margin is what I think will surprise many. It is 3.5 tenths of a second behind them. Yes, there is plenty of close margins, but Vincent Trepanier dominant so far in this qualifying session.
And this is pretty big, Arjuna, because if Vincent Trepanier gets that one bonus point for pole, if he gets the fastest lap and he also wins the race, that gives him 57 points. If Karl Modoff finishes second, he gets 52 points. That puts Vincent Trepanier on a tie with Modoff on points, and that puts him ahead on countback. If Trepanier finishes first on pole and gets the fastest lap, and Modoff finishes second, Trepanier gets the championship.
I hope the viewers understood that, because
it's a lot of numbers.
Yes.
Basically, if Vincent gets the Grand Slam, there's nothing Karl can do to win the championship.
There you go. That's a better way to say it. So, pole position, fastest lap, race win. That's what Vincent Trepanier has got to eye. Karl Modoff has got to at least tick one of those things away, or hope for, at worst, a second place finish, potentially for Karl Modoff, for Vincent Trepanier, excuse me. Let's ride around with Trepanier for a lap here at Phillip Island, because I think this is going to be a really fascinating lap to see. In towards turn number 1, lifting off, but seemingly not on the brakes too aggressively, staying in that 6th clear. Through the southern loop, keeps it tight on the entry, minimizing the distance, swings out slightly, cuts back underneath, and then aggressively onto the power, carrying the momentum down in towards turn number 4.
They need to breathe for just a moment, but it's not going to be a long breath. It's a flat-out left-hander here in turn 3, and then one of the hardest braking zones on the track, the hardest braking zone on the track here, into Miller Corner. Find the apex eventually, then you get a short straight here, and then it's up the hill through turn 5 or through turn 6. Again, late apex, trying to get all the speed you can down this short straight here. It's all about maximizing your momentum. That's the case for everywhere on Phillip Island.
It is. You see Martin Cripps to 2nd, Simon Theriault to 3rd. I think once again, qualifying conditions pretty optimal. It's now up the hill. This is where you got to be brave. Downshift to slow the car with the engine braking. But now down the hill, got to be a little bit early on the brakes. Don't want to let gravity work against you. And Trepanier, so tidy on the apex, sweeps the car now back over to the left, not touching the curb, which is raised slightly before you get to the apex. Doesn't want to unsettle the car as we now build that momentum all the way to the line and get ready to see what might be the final flying attempt from Trepanier with 60 seconds now left on the clock. How quick was that lap? It was 1/10 quicker than the already pole position time. Trepanier now almost half a second clear of the rest.
That is called making yourself the championship favorite very, very early. If he's this fast in qualifying, it could be very easy for him to take the fastest lap in the race and end Karl Modoff's championship in the final hurdle. But Karl's not one to be down and out. He's not one who's going to give up like that. And he is in the same car as Vincent Trepanier, not the same setup as Advanced Motorsport and Delta Sport may have some different goings on in terms of setup building, but either way, Karl Modoff knows he can beat Vincent Trepanier. He's done it many, many times this season. He just needs to do it by quite a bit here on this final lap. He needs to find half a second.
Yeah, it's not a small margin that we are looking for at this stage, are we? And Karl Modov's only going to get this one crack at it. Bartley's jumped up to 12th. He'll get another lap, but Modov's going to see the checkered flag. Once this flag flies, the drivers can finish the lap that they're on, but cannot set any more additional laps beyond that. 26.174, the benchmark for Modov to try and best, but no improvement. Force the bestial lineup.
That is going to hurt for Karl Modov. He can't afford to not win, basically. If Vincent Trepannier's up front, Modov, even if he finishes second, like we said, can't win the championship if Trepanier gets the fastest lap. He knows fourth place is not the place he wants to be right now, and it could fall potentially. Fernando Jaquez, only 70 thousandths of a second off him. It's a great qualifying from Fernando. Dominic Olivier's won a race this season. He's been on pole this season. Can he dump Modov? Oh, yes, he can.
Jumps to the outside of the front row, and by 9 thousandths of a second, these are those margins that we talk about in this series. It's the most competitive that it's ever been. Josh Spears will run to the line, no improvement for him, and Bale slightly early, and now just a handful more drivers to come, but they're going to try some pit entries. Alessandro Torchio in the Juncos Hollinger Esports number 73 dives to the lane, and while there is one championship contender sitting pretty, Karl Modov seems like he might be slightly off the pace compared to this 87.
This is going to hurt a lot for Karl Modov. He's feeling the pressure for the first time he has in many, many weeks. He's been in the championship lead basically since the very beginning of the season. It's been him and Trepanier. He's been on top. But Vincent Trepanier at the final hurdle here really has the advantage. You can tell he's been practicing. He has been preparing. And if he wins tonight, there'll be yet another championship in his so far illustrious GT3 career in the PRL.
And could this be the most competitive championship that he has won in the PRL?
Probably. And also, if he wins the championship here, that gives him 4 championships. That means he is the championist, the most championship winningest driver in the PRL, some combination of those words.
That was not awkward at all, was it?
I don't know how that works. Either way, Abner Acosta and Nick McLaughlin have 3 championships with him, so he's got to elevate him above them if he can do it.
Will he put himself into the record books today? At least continue to put himself into the record books. It's 40 minutes of racing left on a Tuesday for these GT3 Sprint drivers in the Precision Racing League. Let's run you down through the starting grid where, for the 5th time this season, Vincent Trepanier will lead us to the green, and by some margin, 4 and a bit tenths back to Dominic Olivier on the outside of that front row, who's coming off a race win in the last couple of weeks. Martin Crisp in the SimCity Racing 957 is alongside Simon Terrio as the Advanced Motorsports crew sign off on a high. Karl Modov then has plenty of work to do to try and fight his way into the championship mix, alongside Fernando Jaquez, one of the best qualifying performances we've seen this season out of a former championship competitor. Beckham Jasir in that fiercely forward car dominated just a week ago, but rolls from 7th alongside the second of the Seabao Racing Porsches of Juan Malagon. Gonzalo Cortez and then Ryan Puctel make up the rest of the top 10. Arnaud Genet's back in 11th with Nathan Bartley for company. Jeremy Gonzalez, Alessandro Torchio, Ethan Bass, Kevin Simpson, and then Kwok-Nin and Kevin Norris making up those front 9 cars. And of course, great to see a Lamborghini alongside a Ford. The mix of manufacturers in this sprint series. Noah Anderson in the Upfront Motorsports number 27 is inside of Justin Delano, 1.2 seconds splitting the front 10 rows, while our now former GT3 Sprint Fixed champion Gary Brown is in 21st alongside Ted Lowendick in the Nick and Ted's Excellent Adventures number 72. Phillip Magnon and then Michael Terrafino. He's got a new paint scheme for today. Share row number 12 with Miguel Angel Fonseca, Josh Spears, Ryan O'Connor, and then Nick McLaughlin through the top 28. Keaton Marchesi, Alexander Breton 2 seconds off and completing the top 30, while Marc-Andre Deschard, Dan Virus, Nasser, Joseph Carnes, and then Jay Steffi make up the field of 34, with a Ford at the very back of the stacked GT3 field that gets ready to pull itself away. I think it's probably that time that we go and interrupt, to quote themselves, RaceSpot's favorite drivers. Joey, Nick or Ted, who do you want to chat to first?
Both. I can't decide. It's like Christmas. I'm going to take both here. Nick and Ted, it's the last race of the season. We know you guys are going to be back next season because at least one of you isn't joining me in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Whoa. What's the outlook here? What's the outlook at Phillip Island? Are we going to get a top 10 for either of these Ferraris?
that's a good one, Joey.
It's Australia. We can flip the results upside down.
Yeah,
I wish that's how it works.
If we flip the results, absolutely top 10, 100%. There is a fun fact. This is my 300th PRL road race.
Wow. 300.
You are
That's
old.
I was going to say the same thing. What's it? It's got to be similar for you, Ted. Nick's been around longer. But you've done,
I'm not
you've done
gonna
a
lie.
lot.
I probably have a lot more.
I think Teddy's been here longer.
Let's see. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
My statistics only go so far.
I don't know. That's a long time. Anyway,
So you guys are going
This
to
is
keep
getting
yourself
awkward.
amused today. You got half a lap to go, and then it's the last race of the season. We're going to miss these Ferraris if you guys switch for next season, so good luck, don't crash, and I look forward to seeing how the team name changes next season.
well, looking ahead to next season, there's a lot of really, really, really good competition joined up. So it might not be the car next season that's holding us back. It might just be the skill level.
Just get 10,000 I rating in the next 3 weeks, Ted.
Yeah, I don't. Okay.
We could get 9,000 I rating and we'd still only be the third top driver.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
It is it's going to be a very quick field. And I'm really pumped to watch it.
Got a quick field here today, though, Arjuna. I hope they go out on a high, but I hope we can at least get a top 20 or a top 15 out of them. Because if Nick loses the tie as the most GT3 championship winningest, I'm going to find a good way to say that before the broadcast is over, driver. At least he better get a top 20 out of it.
Time to put you on the spot again. Who comes out on top with the championship? All signs point towards Vincent Trepanier at the very front of the field.
I think it's going to be the Vince Meister. It's going to be Vincent Trepanier. He's been too fast in qualifying. Unless he crashes, he's got the championship here.
Not really formed up the best. Dominic Olivier wants a good sight of when the Advanced Motorsport number 87 is going to punch the throttle and bring us to the green for the final time in this 2023 Season 3 Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series season. Instantly battling for second, and Martin Crisp is up the inside of Dominic Olivier. Clear at the front, Vincent Trepanier, and now on the outside battling is Carl Modoff, trying to look on forward instantly at the start of this one. Through the southern loop, a tidy start at the front, but a lot more side by side than what we saw with the Fixed Series.
Look at Modoff in that red 948. He can't really afford to sit back right now like he could earlier in the season. He needs track position. He needs to get closer to Vincent Trepanier, and he needs to pass him. He needs to start pouncing soon, and there he goes. He dives to the inside of Thierio into turn 4.
Thierio's got to work as effectively the team car there and cost Modoff as much time as possible, but lost some ground on the exit of the corner. Modoff is clear into 4th position. Now 2 more cars separate the championship leaders as we work our way up towards Lukey Heights for the first time of asking. This time, a lot more chopping and changing in the top 10. The start was definitely less coordinated overall, but the Snake now single file as we dive down the hill and head on to the anchors.
You know who's feeling some extreme pressure right now? Martin Crisp in that 3rd spot in the new Porsche. He currently sits between 5 out of 6 of our championship contenders right now. He's got championship contenders up ahead. He's got contenders behind. And I did just notice that in the meantime, Boris Ovando, I don't believe he's in the field tonight. So he's missing out on his chance at the championship, but that's still 5 contenders left to go.
End of the opening lap. Margin at the front, half a second or so. Plenty of draft being fed through the field. Interestingly, all 34 got through that opening lap safely, so there's 14 seconds that now separates the field, and Modoff now trying to put that pressure onto Crisp, switching it back and trying to get a better run out of turn number 2. It's not going to come this time in towards the heavy braking zone of the first switchback hairpins, and maybe Thierio's going to have a look of his own.
He's taking a peek, taking a look, just putting the pressure on Modoff, but nothing doing there. He's going to hang back in line. Carl Modoff's in an interesting situation here. He doesn't have any teammates in this series. He's been solo all season long. He's not even technically signed up for Delta Sport in the series, I don't believe. He's just kind of riding on his own with none of those Delta Sport teammates. And he's done a good job of it. He's leading the championship, but it's times like these when you kind of wish you had a championship or a teammate in front of you to get by. He gets by Martin Crisp with relative ease, though, into the inside of turn 9.
And Thierio squeak on through as well. Oh, he's got to watch for Jasir from behind. Trying to bend it like Beckham, switching it back to the apex, but now the long way around. Jasir's going to lose ground.
Last week's winner, Beckham Jasir, absolutely dominant at Le Mans. I thought maybe similar thing could happen here. Could he be the upset championship winner? But he's having a little bit of a struggle back there in P6 with Simon Thierio. That battle's not over yet, though. As Beckham to the inside, a little bit lower downforce, it looks like, on Beckham's Porsche. He's going to be flat out through turn 1 if he can try. Side by side with Simon, that's always tough through turn 1.
Oh!
And there goes Simon around.
Pendulum effect, Porsche snaps around, but by some miracle, Terrio keeps it out of the tires, loses, yes, a bunch of ground, a bunch of positions, but magic car control in the final round of the season.
Very well done there by Simon Terrio. Martin Crisp is off the road as well, right ahead of Fernando Jaquez, I believe. Or actually, that's Gonzalo Cortez, rather, in the other blue and black Porsche. But Ryan Puctel goes around, and there's a pile-up in turn 4.
And Fernando Jaquez got absolutely punted and nowhere to go in that sequence. Turn 4 is a major bottleneck. And it's all kicked off on this third lap of the race.
Bowling time in turn 4. Bad luck, especially bad luck for Fernando Jaquez there. Nothing he could do with Puctel coming by. We'll load up the replay machine when we can, but you're just going to see a lot of crunchy metal there, and just one little mistake in the braking zone, one little bit of contact. A high-speed braking zone like that, that's what you always fear.
And it was all looking so promising as well, because let's not forget how clean for a while it looked like that battle between Terrio and Jasir was going to play out. Now 1.2 at the front for Trepigny, trying to stretch the legs and break away. Here's the look from the on-board perspective of Fernando Jaquez in the first part of the sequence. Whoa. Major checkup as Terrio had the issue, and then from here, the chaos ensued.
That's heartbreaking for Fernando, because he avoided Simon Terrio. He was like, whew, I got away with that one. I've survived. Hopefully that's the last scare of the day. But then Gonzalo Cortez clips the grass in the straight for some reason. Puctel's trying to come through. He clips the grass, clips Cortez, just barely avoids Fernando's teammate, Jeremy Gonsalves, or no, one of the other drivers, and then Fernando gets collected.
Yep, unfortunate sequence there for all. Gonzalo Cortez down on pit lane, the only driver that's had to make the trip to the box. That's Terrio, by the way, the white car trying to recover. Gets past Justin Delano. Noah Anderson's past Juan Malagon. This is all as it got very dark very quickly. It's as though the skies got a sense of what was going on the track and said, you know what, I can help shift the mood. Martin Crisp loses in another spot. Jasir's up to 4th.
Crisp was really quick over one lap, put it 3rd in qualifying, but just hasn't had the race pace here early on and has not got along with turn 9 there. Jasir gets to his inside. Modoff got to his inside there earlier. It might just be a little bit of a regression to the mean for Martin Crisp here. And I believe this is a 4th new livery for Martin Crisp. He'd run some artsy cars. He'd run the Sim City car earlier this season, and now he's in the final race of the season with some new colors.
Always great to see these drivers show their artistic flair, and in Martin Crisp's case as well, a lot of those liveries put together by himself, so gets his opportunity to put his own little stamp on the liveries that he will end up racing out there on the track itself. Another driver is having some issues. This is further back in one of the few Lamborghinis in the field. Kevin Simpson, another one to keep it out of the tires.
I think he may have grazed it a little bit in the right side there, but it wasn't bad. Not heavy damage on that Lamborghini, so turn 1 comes back to bite another one, but another one giving it a good save. A little bit of an accordion effect under braking here, though. That's Kwok Nin leading this little train. Noah Anderson, Juan Malagon, Simon Terrio, Ted Lowendick, especially Simon Terrio 4th in line here. He is looking forward. He should not be back here without a mistake. And all 3 of those guys in front of him are going to have their mirrors full.
Don't want to drive angry. I think that's going to be the key thing. But if you are Simon Terrio, you know that you can show your pace. Nick McLaughlin not going to get to show his pace, unfortunately. And Alessandro Torchio, another one off.
It's a turn 9. That's very, very early, though. That's odd. We'll get a replay when we can, but we're finding new ways to go off with every single lap here at Phillip Island. It's a tricky track. It's very, very difficult. It might look somewhat simple. There's not a whole lot of corners. A lot of them are flat out, but there's plenty of places to make mistakes. And into turn 1 here, Kevin Simpson, too much speed through turn 1. The rear end gives out. Does a very good job of locking it down and just barely grazes the tires. It could have been far worse.
But the right side of the car looks pretty clean, so I'll give him that. McLaughlin just wiggled and then wobbled his way around. That car never looked like it was settled. And then Torchio will spool it back slightly further, but was that running wide by himself. Ethan Bass in the Ford piles the pressure on.
Yeah, he had the Bassmaster behind him and then just got a little bit intimidated, moved over too far to the right, and at that point, you're off the road. There's nothing you can do.
I think Ethan Bass needs a new nickname. You can't call him
Bassmaster.
Yeah, no, exactly that. You can't call him the Intimidator. It's the Bassmaster.
Exactly, that's what we called him last week. He finished P5 in the Ford at Le Mans, was fighting for the podium with Karl Modhoff. I believe he finished ahead of Karl Modhoff, if I'm remembering correctly, so he's the Bassmaster permanently now.
Well, for Modhoff, he's gained 2 positions so far on the back of Olivier, but now with that gap up to the 87 beginning to rise, a bit wide from Olivier over the crest before heading into the braking zone. You can see that Modhoff's just that little bit tidier, that little bit more calm as well in the body language of the car and the way that it's developing the speed. Modhoff can't afford to get checked up too long behind here. We come around with now 6 laps going to be complete, almost 10 minutes in the books, and Vincent Trepanier running away with the lead of the race and potentially running away with the championship as well. Modhoff to the inside and through to second.
That was a big move. He just had a huge burst of speed at the end of the acceleration zone. Olivier kind of fell off. I wonder if he maybe hit the limiter a little bit with a higher downforce setup, and Modhoff just blew by him. And this is a critical pass here, because right now, as it stands, Vincent Trepanier is winning your championship. He had the pole, he has the fastest lap right now, and he's going to get the win, most likely. But if Modhoff or anybody else in the field can steal that fastest lap, if Modhoff finishes second here, he does get the championship by a point. But he needs to hope that he or somebody else gets the fastest lap.
And the maybe worry for the 948 is that punching the hole in the air for Olivier. Is Karl Modhoff going to be slightly compromised on the fuel number and give the opportunity for that Precision Racing Esports car to take advantage? Already that gap's grown to 0.6 of a second, and Modhoff's brought the gap to the front under 2, so you can see the focus, the determination, and Noah Anderson hoping to stay out of trouble and backed up into the gravel.
Gary Brown, I think, clipped him a little bit coming through there, but Noah Anderson at Nick McLaughlin corner there. Same mistake we've seen so many times tonight, and it's just yet another driver to add to the list. It's such a difficult corner, high speed, you're almost braking and turning at the same time, and I have a feeling we're going to see something very, very familiar here. Up the hill, doesn't get any help, just loses it on his own, right ahead of Juan Malagan.
The thing is, even though that corner is cambered in, there's a moment at the entry where you have the track almost somewhat flatten out, and if you don't have the right balance of the car there, it will carry the car basically to the outside of the track. It is decidedly an uncomfortable experience when you get it wrong. 10 minutes officially now complete, 30 to go. Pit stop window going to open up in, you'd say, 10 or so minutes time, with drivers then extending it as long as 20 minutes from now to maybe just 10 minutes to go in the race. For Trepanier, there has been no concern and no thoughts you'd assume of fuel saving. He was just trying to pull away and build as much of an advantage as possible, as Miguel Angel Fonseca just about kept it on the track.
Well done there, good save. I hope we get to give him all the credit he deserves there. Jeremy Gonsalves, I think, ahead, has made a similar mistake, so we're only 12 minutes into the race, and we've already had a good third of the field who's made their errors already. There's going to be a lot more coming, but here's Fonseca on the exit of turn 2. Did exactly what he needed to do, kept the wheel pointed straight, kept it on the grass, and brought it back on track without losing much at all. So well done there, Miguel. Well done making up for that. And well done, Ethan Bass, making a move on Arnaud Genet.
Yep, has slid through to the 7th spot. Kevin Norris rides behind Jeremy Gonsalves, involved in this little fight as well. They have lost a healthy chunk of time, 3 seconds to Nathan Bartley, and now with no hole in the air being punched in front, is the Ford going to be vulnerable to the charge of that Porsche? Back comes Genet to the inside, but with not enough speed, the Ford holds on.
You can't beat the Bassmaster in a straight line in that Ford. Very well held for Ethan Bass, and he has been driving like a champion these past 2 weeks. Top 5 at Le Mans last week, P7 right now. I can't wait to see him back next season, because I believe he's not going with the Ford again. He's going to pick a car that can legitimately fight at every track, and I look forward to seeing Ethan Bass's true pace every single week, not being held down by the Ford. As much as we love it, I want to see him compete week in and week out.
Got Simon Terrier, by the way, that's up to 11th, has just gone past Kwok Nin. Recovery drive continues. I just heard the klaxon as well for Ryan Pucktell, who is headed down to pit lane, but not the only driver that's had issues. Kevin Simpson, Noah Anderson, Fernando Yaquez, and Gonzalo Cortez may all be done for the day. And that's the other Ford in the field, Jay Steffi, that spun at turn number 4.
It's the swan song for the Ford, most likely. Some have gone better than others, but poor old Jay Steffi, he's he's run into the bad parts of the Ford. There's some good parts of the Ford. It gets some good speed at times, but you also do realize that it's a very old car. It's not a car that's really meant to be racing right now, and sometimes you run into some trouble with it, but sometimes you run into some trouble with the Porsche as well. So I believe that's Noah Anderson throwing it off the road again.
And that's, I think, why the day came to an end. Just a slow roll into the wall, and then eventually called it quits. Here's the SimCity Racing car. Pucktail just too much speed through turn 2, and then does a nice little 360, and I think is going to continue before having to come down pit lane. It's a highlight reel you don't want to be on, unfortunately, and Jay Steffi's going to be the last car that we check out. Tidy initially in the braking phase, but just too deep, and then once again, pinches around.
Yep, too much speed, and that's just basic physics, unfortunately. Too much speed trying to make the turn. Nick McLaughlin almost beached on a berm there. Let's see what happened here.
Oh, it's the same corner.
Same corner, a Nick McLaughlin corner, unfortunately, and then he tries to gas it up and almost gets beached. He was so close to getting beached there. Unfortunately, that would have been a perfect way to end his season, to get beached, like we saw a couple guys do at Willow Springs. But,
wait, did we really?
And the LMP3s at Willow Springs,
boy.
2 people got beached in 2 different ways.
I've definitely never had that happen to be at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Never, never.
It's easy to do. It's easy to do, especially at a place like this, a place like Willow Springs. There's like hills in the grass.
At the front, we are being treated once again to a bit of a masterclass from Vincent Trepanier, Carl Modoff, and Dominic Olivier. Still, the tension builds, though, as to if anyone steals that fastest lap away from Trepanier, championship could still go the way of Modoff. Olivier is now off the track. I think he's going to hold on to it, but the top 2 stretch their legs. The best 2 over the season, fighting all the way to the checkered flag.
But even some of the best in the business can't avoid the mistake in turn 2, or even through turn 1, I think is where it all kicked off for Olivier there. Even he couldn't save it. Even he was vulnerable to the inefficiencies of the Porsche. We ride on board with him into turn 1, little lift through the corner, clips the curb a little bit, and just that little clip unsettles the car. And he's in the inside there. The brakes aren't doing anything. He's just flailing, trying to get the car to slow down, and losing, and losing, and losing, all the way down to 5th.
And so, just a moment or 2 later, more drama. And it's also for Porsches. Fonseca has an issue, but getting the worst of it, Alexander Bretonu, in trying to take avoiding action, pancakes his Porsche into the inside wall.
Breton almost flipped there. He got on the brakes to avoid Fonseca, and that loops him around, and then hard into the wall was Alexander Breton. Almost flips the car. Bad luck for him. And bad luck, I think, for Ethan Bass. Him and Arnaud Genet are side by side. That's still kicking off, but Bass is going to fight back. The Bassmaster back to P7, and Jeremy Gonsalves joins the fun.
The Bosch Master there almost. There was definitely contact. Gonsalves has to watch as maybe we'll see a bit of teammate allegiance as the Unit Sim Sport cars can work together in the draft. But a big wiggle for Genet.
Oh.
Gonsalves gets the elbows out, and bye-bye Genet.
That was clumsy stuff from Caven Norris there, trying to fill the middle of a gap that didn't really exist, and unfortunately, his teammate Arnaud Genet comes off the worst there. Arnaud, a champion this season, the PRL, dominantly won the Radical Fixed Series, but his GT3 exploits end in a massive accident. Let's watch the start of it here. I think Ethan Bass actually makes a mistake and lets Genet through for a moment. Actually, it was just very aggressive stuff from Genet to get to the inside. But then you saw what happened. It all falls apart quickly.
So there is definitely a bit of contact there. Genet gets escorted wide. Gonsalves up the inside. Caven Norris.
Did Arnaud drift through the final corner here?
Does,
I think he did.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Look at that. 4-wheel drift off the corner. But now as Caven Norris, you say, tries to come and fill the void in the middle. I don't know if that was necessarily all Caven's fault. Was there something that the iRacing gods had to say as well?
Let's see it from the helicopter. I don't think Nathan Bartley there moved over as much, or whoever that was, Jeremy Gonsalves rather. I don't think Gonsalves moved over as much as Caven did. Maybe they both moved over, but Caven was kind of at the back of the line there. He didn't really have any reason to send it in. That gap wasn't opening. And yeah, he just kind of moves over.
It's such a light contact, and when I said iRacing gods, I was wondering if there was maybe some netcode involved there. Not still 100% sure. It's not an excuse either, but I think I agree with you that maybe for Caven Norris postseason, penalties may be coming his way.
And the guy who he wrecked is the guy who will be giving out the penalty.
Yeah, I was trying not to say that, but Arnaud's reasonable. He's not going to be too harsh, surely. He might even be less harsh because he was the one that was wrecked.
And also, if he needs to, there is a second steward, so that's the thing about the driver racing in the series, that if he does get involved in an incident, if Arnaud punts someone, which has happened before, he goes over to J.R. Williams, who's the other steward, and he deals with that, so there's no conflict of interest.
Oh no, why did you do that? Is probably what the question has to be answered. 2.5 now at the front almost. Trepanier, even with Modov now having no car in the rearview mirror to put the pressure on, 10th by 10th. Chunk by chunk, continuing to try and just build up the advantage. I was wanting to talk about the fastest lap situation earlier, but we got really interrupted by cars having major moments. The fact that we are racing into the morning here means the track temperature expected to rise, which means we'd probably expect the lap times to fall off. Best lap of the race, 26.480 for Trepanier. Last time by, 27.283. We're talking almost a second off the pace here, which means I think that fastest lap is secure.
It's probably true. I also think we just saw a huge moment through turn 1 there. I think that was by a lapped car. So that's where things could come undone for Vincent Trepanier. He's about to reach lap traffic. Was it Karl Modov?
Look at
it was. He's lost 2 seconds with a huge moment.
Yeah, the time doesn't lie, does it? We'll see if we can get a replay of what happened there. But yeah, that something has happened and the gap has definitely grown. Here is what happened in towards turn number 1. I did see a moment, but I couldn't quite pick up what it was.
Yeah, it looked like a silver car, but it was Modov. I think he's another victim of turn 1.
Ooh!
There it is. He almost died. He almost binned it entirely. What a save.
I'm telling you, there's something in the air today. Not with the incidents, because that's the nature of Phillip Island, but with some of these saves. Look at that.
It was almost calamity. It was I'm at a loss for words. I don't even think we can speak. I think we have to let that speak for itself.
I think the problem is now the tire's cooked.
I think you're right. I think we need to look at a list of the fastest lap times in the race, because I want to know who's close to Trepanier. If there's anybody within a couple of tenths, if they can get a good draft, if they can put tires at the pit stop, can anybody get close?
No. I regret to inform you. Unless Karl Modov wants to sacrifice the position that he runs in right now, there are those fastest lap times. There's only 5 drivers if you include Torchio in the 26s, and only one of them below a 26.5. Modov 2/10 off. Jasir is almost half a second off. Yeah, fastest lap I think's gone. I think Modov's unfortunately pushed a bit too hard as well, and now the tire's not in his favored window.
It's going to be absolutely heartbreaking for Karl Modov, because as things stand, there's still 19 minutes to go, and we saw Karl Modov make that big mistake. We could very well see Trepanier do the same thing. But as things stand, it'll be a tie on points, and Vincent Trepanier with 3 wins versus Modov's 1 will come out on countback. But there's still lots to resolve further back. Dominic Olivier and Beckham Jasir, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, are only separated by 2 points in the championship. So they, in and of themselves, might not be fighting for the championship anymore, but they are fighting for P4. P3, actually, now that Ovando's gone.
So what we were saying, right, about the fact that there is stories that everyone in this championship will have. It's not always just up towards the front where we'll talk about everything that is going on, but all these drivers will be trying to end this season on a high. There comes Martin Crisp. Early gamble to pit lane, 18 minutes still to go in this race, and the SimCity Racing 957 hits the box with a nice aggressive pit stop entry.
That's what practice does for you. That's why you saw a bunch of drivers going for an attempt at the pit stop during qualifying, because they want to maximize every single tenth they can get. It's a straightforward pit entry, but those straightforward pit entries are where you can gain a lot of time, and you see Martin Crisp here going up on the jacks. There are a lot of left-hand corners on this track, so I think Martin Crisp is taking 2 tires there.
See how it plays with the balance of the car. We'll see as well what other drivers end up doing.
No.
Ethan Bass, the Bassmaster, slides wide, but holds on to 8th, except Kwok Nin's coming through.
Kwok gets by him, still P9, so it's still a solid day for Bass, but even the Ford is susceptible to those errors. Let's see, through turn 2, that's a weird one. Through the middle of the corner, has to overcorrect it, and feeling the pressure from Simon Theriault behind. Early apex for Bass, then a bobble after clipping the curb, and then couldn't keep it on the track. He was so close.
I mean, he gave it a good try. The thing with the Ford as well is the way that sometimes it responds can be quite sluggish, and so you're not always going to get the car snapping back the way you want when you need it to. Joseph Carnes almost gets tagged, and Justin Delano, Michael Terrafino, 2 drivers already having come down the pit lane. Now fight for 20th spot, although it could be for a little bit more moving on forward. Brand new livery for at least Michael Terrafino, for me, having missed the last 2 weeks. Must say, looks smashing. I do like it.
Does. And you missed last week, Arjuna. Michael Terrafino, GT3 Fixed champion from a couple seasons ago, qualified second at Le Mans, was fighting for the podium all race long. Didn't quite go his way. I believe finished a little bit deeper in the top 10, but it was easily his best race in this sprint series. He staked his ground that he belongs here at this top level.
Can't even go on holiday anymore, can I? Although, to be fair, maybe I should have planned it a little bit better since we've got 3 weeks coming up.
Maybe. You should have... we need to make PRL TMZ so we can send you the headlines.
Oh, that is a genius idea. I'm trying to think of what witty acronyms we can come up with, because, of course, PRL doesn't just stand for Precision Racing League. What's
Professional Reporting Live.
That's not bad, but what does it really stand for, Joey?
It stands for Playing Race Cars Loud as well.
Yeah, there we go. And glorious sound that we've got of these machines. We mentioned the Ferrari earlier. If the rumblings of a new GT3 are true, I would not be shocked if it's a brand new Ferrari that is going to be joining us, that 296. Could be a Huracan Evo 2 as well, or maybe a brand new manufacturer instead of updating one of the existing cars, although the Ford, people are waiting for that GTD to come on in. Trepignet, Modoff, Olivier all come on in as Jasir stays out. What are you thinking you might want to see in terms of GT3 machinery, Joey?
Duesenberg, Austin Healey, Sprite.
These are not GT3s.
Curtis Kraft. I'm going back to the 1930s with my ideas. But this is critical moments because Trepignet and Thierry, or not Trepignet and Thierry, Trepignet and Modoff, they've not really been saving fuel. I feel like they've been pushing. Trepignet 11.5, Modoff 12.5. He's lost another second to Trepignet.
I think maybe it was as well the extra fuel maybe that was being burned in trying to get past some of those cars. He's able to use a short pit exit and immediately fall into line, while for Trepignet, Gary Brown has some dirty air to feed him as the tires get back up to temperature. 2 tires being taken again, as mentioned. Brown's going to run a bit wide. Trepignet swoops on through. We'll get a good indication now for lap times with the weather continuing to increase. Track temperature 71 degrees Fahrenheit. With 2 fresh tires, are these drivers going to be able to get close to the times they've already set?
They're going to hope so. I think basically Modoff's only hope right now is that somebody at the back of the field with about 5 minutes to go goes for a Hail Mary on light fuel, puts in a full fresh set of tires, and that might be how things change with the fastest lap. But it's got to be somebody fast. It can't be somebody who unfortunately is at the back of the field because of pace. They're not going to be able to beat Trepignet anyway. But if somebody's who's had some bad luck, if Ethan Bass, for example, comes in for a glory run, that could be Trepignet's end, but I don't think that's very likely.
Maybe Simon Theriault, knowing that the team championship's already locked up, can come in and take that fastest lap. Except, wait, that's a teammate.
Yeah, that would rob Trepignet of the championship. That would not... and that's the problem. Modoff has no teammates.
Yes.
He has no people to be his rear gunner.
That's the problem. I was trying to come up with someone who might want to actually play nice with Carl Modoff, and the only person that my mind went to was Trepignet's teammate.
Be an insurgent. There would be an insurrection in advanced motorsports.
Wonderful, wonderful analysis there coming your way. Trepignet up the inside of some lap traffic. And fortunately, better judge of the momentum between the 2 cars than I was, because I thought that was only ending in tears for a moment. Jasir Olivier out of pit lane and battling again. Martin Crisp has lost out through that entire sequence.
He has lost a couple of spots down at the end of the train now. Still waiting on Ted Lowendick, Torquio, and Philippe Magnan to come in. Then we'll get the official order. But they're all going to be going deeper in the field. I think the teens for all 3 of them, not going to have to worry about them. This will be the battle for the end of the top 5. Martin Crisp has been quicker than these guys at times. He's been slower than these guys at times. It's been an up and down race for Martin. But what a way it would be to end his season, get another podium. We know he's capable of it. He's capable of wins in this series. Hasn't got one this season, though.
The Ants dance their way in towards Lukey Heights with now 12 minutes to go. Just the 3 cars, Lowendick, Torchio, and Magnon inside of the top 10 to pit. Marc-Andre Desjardins and Nick McLaughlin have also been able to extend their fuel just that little bit longer, but I think that's going to start changing. Watch on that left side of the screen to see the pit icon start to light on up. Trepanier going to cycle back to the front. Modoff going to sit in second, and we'll get a good indication of what the margin's going to be at the work that Modoff's going to have to do. 4.8 seconds that the 948 has to close if he wants a chance of fighting for the championship.
It's going to be tough. It's not impossible, and he's making up a little bit of time through turn 1 on Vincent Trepanier every lap, but it's nowhere near enough. There's only about 10 laps to go. He needs to hope that something goes wrong for Vincent Trepanier, or else it's all over, because right now Trepanier is on max points, and Karl Modoff can only get so close. That's the unfortunate part of the PRL point system coming to the fray, but it's also by design. The winner gets more points. There's a 3-point gap from the win down to second because wins need to be rewarded, and Vincent Trepanier, if he gets more wins, he gets the championship. That's how it's worked out.
Countback's always fun as well. We talked about penalty points in the first race of the night. Trepanier does have 10 penalty points that he has accumulated. That is also slightly changing the mix of how the championship has played out. Pit entry, by the way, we've talked about how treacherous it can be. Marc-Andre Desjardins going to prove that, and you can also see just how bobbly it can be. Remarkably, keeps it out of the wall.
Oh, he did! He did keep it out of the wall, even after falling down the hill there. I mean, his name is Desjardins. I believe that translates to the gardens, so it's no wonder he's good in the grass.
Don't think you want to be finding that bit of grass, that's for sure. Jasir starting to look a little bit slow, a little bit ragged at times. Olivier in the draft and maybe too early pulling out. Outside, long way around for the Precision Racing Esports car. And look at Martin Crisp trying to set up as Jasir gets pinched in through that opening corner. It's turn 2 where Martin Crisp going to try and lunge himself potentially. Jasir's got the inside. Jasir still has third.
Olivier in that silver Precision Racing Esports Porsche trying to find another way by Beckham Jasir. Beckham at the head of the strain bobbles a little bit off turn 2. That's going to give Dominic Olivier another run here off the rear wing of Jasir here. Does Olivier peek to the inside? He's going to peek to the outside. He's going to peek to the middle. There he goes to the outside into turn 4.
Jasir's still going to try and slam the door shut. There's some AstroTurf that you can use, but not if you're that wide and ragged. Olivier now defending from Crisp, who slightly compromised himself, running too wide on the entry in through Siberia. A proper drag-out fight going on as they lose themselves time to the top 2, where already Karl Modoff has been able to bring back in 1 second to Vincent Trepanier. Now almost 3 seconds, the margin at the front.
That is getting interesting because at this rate, if it stays the way it is, Modoff might be able to close that gap, but I don't know what happened on Vincent Trepanier's previous lap. I think it may have just been a little bit of a bobble. I don't know if he's actually lost pace, but if those tires are starting to fall off a little bit, this might not be over.
Bit more separation between this fight for the final step of the podium as they cycle out of that final corner once more. Now with 21 laps complete for them, 9 minutes to go, they are probably looking at should be another 6 laps for these drivers to run. Keaton Marchese, another one who has had to have a trip down to the pit lane. Justin Delano has run off the track and going to rejoin directly in the path of a Mercedes. That wasn't scary at all.
That was terrifying for Ryan O'Connor there. But Delano very smartly got on the brakes, was probably watching his relative, seeing O'Connor come through there. So well done by him to not get into any sort of trouble there. Olivier peeks to the outside again into turn 4. But it's a corner where it's very difficult to go around the outside. It's not cambered at all. It's basically completely flat, and you need to be quicker. You need to have better tires to go around the outside there. So he's going to wait another lap. But imagine if this was the race for the win. I think this is pretty much what we're going to be seeing a lot of next season with a lot of the new drivers coming in. Some very, very highly rated drivers. We're going to be seeing racing like this for the win, not just for third.
That's the expectation, that's the hope, that's for sure. Here's what happened to Delano, someone that we are not unfamiliar with being up towards the front, and really took advantage of the transition back on the tarmac as Ryan O'Connor slid on through. All while that was happening, just a couple of moments later, Jeremy Gonzalez in the 74 Precision Racing Esports Porsche had a wiggle, then a wobble, then a wiggle, then a wobble, and outside of turn 2, gravel slowed him down a little bit more, stayed out of the walls. That's a nice sight to be able to see. Still a challenge though from the other Precision Racing Esports machine. Olivier has a wall in front, Jasir being very difficult to break down.
Gonna have to wait one more corner for that. Further back, Tyrio's on his charge forward, drifts it through turn 1. I did just remember that the Wiggles are from Australia, so of course it's fitting that this is the wiggliest track of the year. And Simon Tyrio, he's going to be driving on threads by the end of this race, and he almost throws it off the road. And Dominic Olivier clear of Beckham Jasir into the braking zone, but again, the outside's so difficult here, he's got to fall out again.
And now Martin Crisp has some overlap if he wants to challenge that for that 4th position. He realizes he can't afford to lose too much ground, doesn't want to try and battle, and tucks back into the line that runs themselves into that middle sector. It is starting to pick up in terms of action. Margin at the front, I will note, is keeping relatively steady. Trepinier's been able to hold mode off now within the pace differential that he needs to hold on to. Torchio battles with Lowendick in the middle sector.
Such an interesting mix of drivers here from 3 different countries, by the way. You've got Ethan Bass, the Scotsman, currently racing in the middle of the night. Then behind him, you've got Ted Lowendick, the biological scientist from Ohio, and then behind him you've got Alessandro Torchio, an Italian who won a Mexican Superbike championship. That doesn't tell you how diverse this series is in terms of walks of life. I don't know what will, because it's absolutely insane. And at the head of this train for 3rd, you've got a driver from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you've got a go-kart star in Beckham Jasir, and you got a Canadian in Martin Crisp. That was like 7 countries I just mentioned.
Beckham Jasir has lost that 3rd position though. Not sure exactly where that happened as we take a look at it. Final corner. Oh, Jasir ragged again. And somehow Olivier checked up in time to not lose too much momentum, but also not run into the back of the fiercely forward machine. The tires on Jasir's car definitely showing how much they are being pushed right now. And I don't feel like Jasir is going to be able to latch onto the back of the draft. He's going to be more concerned about Chris from behind trying to make a move.
Lap traffic up ahead. I think that's Joe Carnes, but he's been very respectful. He's going to get out of the way. Well done there, Joe. One of the Precision Racing Esports, so of course he's going to be up to his good behavior. Of course he's going to be on his good behavior with Dominic Olivier coming behind him. We rode on board with Martin Crisp there, hunting Beckham Jasir. He sees that the pressure's on him. Those tires are getting very, very hot under that fiercely forward yellow Porsche. And coming onto the front stretch again, Olivier's got a pretty good gap here. Martin Crisp, though, is going to be close to back. There's another bobble from him.
Much higher rate of attrition in this one. 34 starters left with the 25 still running. Josh Beers, Arnaud Genet, Miguel Angel Fonseca, Breton, Puctel, Simpson, Anderson, Cortez. The retirements have truly stacked on up. Jasir losing ground to Olivier, but no move from Crisp. There is going to be some battling through the final quarter. Lowendick's been passed by Alessandro Torchio. See the margin up to Ethan Bass grow and increase, and now the power of that Ferrari builds Lowendick to the outside as we work into the opening corner.
Ted Lowendick, another one of those drivers who's competed in multiple series this season. P5 in the PRL NASCAR Xfinity Series in his first oval season in the PRL. Got a win on the road course of the Indy GP. He's had a great time. And a P12 for him, the top dozen, would be a great finish for him as well. So he wants to get by Alessandro Torchio. He wants to use the straight line speed of the Ferrari, but it's not going to work for him just yet. He's not going to be close enough for a dive into turn 4.
Bartley and Terrio still continuing to tussle as well. Final 3 and a bit minutes, couple of laps to go, and these drivers fighting not just to the end of the race, but at end of the season. Trepinier with 3 minutes and 14 to go heading to the line is going to make it. 3 laps left to go this season.
And this has been an incredible story in the PRL for Vincent Trepinier, because he was not always this dominant pro-level guy who we see right now. He started in the AM class. He was fighting with Nick McLaughlin for an AM championship, but he had the help of a guy by the name of Guillaume Levesque. We know him from Advanced Motorsports. We know him from the top level of iRacing. And Guillaume will actually be back next season. He's coming back to the PRL. He's going to be one of those titans we talked about, fighting with Vincent. Daniel Ferguson's coming back. Nicholas Rubelar is coming back. Nathan Lewis is coming back.
Wait, what?
Guillaume Levesque is coming back to the PRL.
No, that I heard. But then you said Daniel Ferguson.
Nicholas Rubelar,
You said
Daniel
Nicholas
Ferguson,
Rubelar.
Manuel Troncoso,
Oh my goodness.
Nathan Lewis.
Yeah, and then you said Nathan Lewis, of course, the BS competition driver. We got an Arnage competition driver in there as well. Pure Sim's going to be represented. The two-time, multi-time British touring car champion Ash Sutton will be watching and cheering his team on. Wow. I hadn't looked at the sign-ups. I did not recognize the level that we were going to be seeing next season. Boy, this season was a step up.
I don't know how it's getting better. I don't know how that's possible, but it's happening.
Well, the next step is PRL World Championship. There we go.
I mean, you never know.
Book
Live
it.
and in person.
That sounds amazing. Terrio alongside with Bartley down in towards turn 10. Gonna have 2 laps to go, let's not forget, because of the gap that Trepinier's got up towards the front. And Terrio's got the draft, but almost runs wide into the grass.
Simon Terrio will be back as well. Definitely going to be an important factor in that Advanced Motorsports team next season, but he wants to finish out this season with one more bit of glory. He's got 6th in the championship locked right now. Not going to move forward, not going to fall back. It's been a great season for Simon in his first year of PRL GT3 racing. Into the inside of turn 1 in the draft later on the brakes, but he's got to wait again for turn 4. Does he? Bartley bobbles.
Big wiggle there. You can see these drivers are really pushing to the limit, and maybe part of this as well, the fact that Phillip Island relatively underused in the platform. We don't tend to see it too much. Race Leader's got some traffic to deal with, by the way. Vincent Trepinier gets ready to see the white flag. And now with drama!
Oh, no!
Contact for the Race Leader. Trepinier's off. Modov's going to come on through and potentially take the championship away.
That is championship defining there with Carl Modov in the lead. That's Vincent Trepinier losing the championship, but what happened there? That was at turn 9, Nick McLaughlin. I didn't see what happened to him. Did he just lose it right ahead of Vincent Trepinier? I don't know what happened there, but that might be the championship.
Nick McLaughlin, I think, was trying so hard to stay out of the way that he got into the grass and has caused some drama. We can't not take a look at it. This is a championship-defining moment.
Oh, no.
Contact with the left front. Trepinier surely not going to be at full health. But as we head on to the final lap, after a rather anticlimactic race, let's be honest. Carl Modov had really pushed, but Vincent Trepinier had done it all. Pole position, fastest lap, led all but 2 laps effectively. And now half a lap to go before Carl Modov could be our champ.
That is absolutely unbelievable. And I'm at a loss for words because I don't know how that happened, and I don't know how Carl Modov feels right now, because he was not the fastest of the 2 drivers today. He was 4 seconds behind Vincent Trepinier, but now some gift from the gods has come out to put him in the race lead, and he is going to outscore Vincent Trepinier today. He already has a 5-point lead on him in the championship. This will be the championship for Carl Modov, against all odds if he can hang on for 3 more corners.
You can never be guaranteed anything in the world of motorsports. Vincent Trepinier for 40 minutes thought he had done enough, but it was on that very final couple of laps where things were to unfold. Carl Modov's in the right place at the right time. A historic championship.
He's giving it back.
Are we about to see the most honest form of racing? Carl Modov gives the championship to Vincent Trepinier. The 2 pushed themselves all the way to the end, and you love to see 2 drivers that pushed and pushed and pushed, showing each other some respect at the very end.
I didn't want to suggest that because I didn't know if it would happen, but I was thinking that would be a great thing for Carl Modov to do. Vincent Trepinier did nothing wrong there. It was a freak accident that took him out, and I don't think Carl would have wanted to win the championship that way.
For a couple of moments there, was in utter shock. I still am in many ways, as the field comes to the end of a wild season. Maybe the most competitive PRL championship ever. It's all with the recognition that Vincent Trepinier is the champion. But next season, 3 weeks from now, we're going to get going for what might be an even wilder ride.
And some great finishes deeper in the order as well. Caven Norris, even with the incident he got into, a top 8 for him. That's going to be good for him. Ethan Bass in the top 10 in the Ford. Ted Lowendick laughed at me suggesting he was going to get a top 10 tonight, and he got that in the Ferrari.
Once again, I just want to say great sportsmanship. We will talk to Trepigny, we'll talk to Modoff, and we'll get their thoughts on what has been a wild, wild season. They will end, I think, with plenty to talk about, and now a couple of weeks to take a break. Modoff will unfortunately not return for next season. We'll see what that has to offer us. Quick look at the race results before we have a chat with those drivers. Can't wait for it. Trepigny, Modoff swap around on those very final laps back and forth, but Trepigny the champ, and by the slimmest of margins. Dominic Olivier grabs the podium in front of Beckham Jasir, Martin Chris, Simon Theriault, Nathan Bartley, Caven Norris, Ethan Bass, and then Ted Lowendick. That's your top 10. Torchio in 11th in front of Juan Malagon, Michael Terrafino, Jeremy Gonzalez, and Phillip Magnon. Even though some of those drivers had a couple of issues, able to hold on to relatively decent finishes come the end of the race. 16th for Gary Brown, who finishes out his very first season in this Sprint Championship, coming in as the defending Fixed champion. Delano, O'Connor, Nin, and Steffi, then all still on the leading lap and with almost 70 seconds of the race leader. One lap down for the likes of Carnes, Deschardins, and then we get into those that struggled a bit more. McLaughlin, Nasser, Marchesi, Yaquez, Spears, Genet, Breton, and then Fonseca, and 4 more drivers not seeing the end. Noah Anderson, Kevin Simpson, Ryan Puctel, and then Gonzalo Cortez. I think Vincent Trepigny is still probably catching his breath and trying to figure out what happened. So in the meantime, let's have a catch up with Carl Modoff. And Carl, let's talk about a remarkable season. And before we talk about the end, let's talk about the start of this race, where qualifying didn't go all your own way, but you really fought hard to work up to second.
Yeah, guys. Man, I don't know if that cost me the championship. I think it might have, but it's all good. I do this for fun, and I feel like Vincent beat me in that race, so I didn't want him to lose by, saw that Nick was trying to get out of his way and dropped it in the grass and kind of knocked him off, so that's an unfortunate situation for him. But yeah, the start of the race, the qualifying, I just couldn't put it together. I don't know, in the PRL, it's like sometimes the track feels like a different track that you've raced on all weekend, and the car doesn't feel the same, and that's kind of just what I felt like all day. I felt like I was really dialed in coming into tonight, and then qualifying, I just couldn't really put it together. The race I felt better, but still it was like throughout I just kept having understeer. I almost died once at the exit of turn 1. I don't know how I saved that, and just a very difficult race, to hold on to the car. So thankfully I was able to make good spots at the beginning of the race. I knew that, getting stuck behind guys, I had to strike while I was hot at the beginning of the race, so I tried to move up knowing, I had to be pretty much on Vince's tail, so that's what I tried to do.
Yeah, let's talk then about the moment. You said, of course, a couple of things already, but a couple of people have already jumped in the chat to say, what a class act that was of you to do. But talk to us about the season. You and Vincent have so much respect for one another, and it's because you can go out there and race so close with one another and trust that things are going to work out all right.
Yeah, that's why I sign up for leagues like this. It's just guys like Vincent. Just guys that week in and week out are super competitive, super hard to beat. I mostly do the sim racing. I've been doing it so long now just for the competitive aspect of it. So, to be able to race against someone like Vincent, who's going to race you clean, and he's going to show up every week really fast and hard to beat and prepared. So, being able to run a season against him, I don't know. I think we might have tied on points, and maybe he'll win on wins. I'm not really sure how that looks and shakes out, but it just makes it a lot of fun. You want to put work into it, and you get better each and every week when you're racing against really good guys. So it's just been a really good competitive season.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to see you back next season, Carl. We can confirm that, at least from what we understand, tied on points, but Vincent wins on countback. Great, really competitive season, and congratulations on what was a really strong campaign, and looking forward to seeing you next time on RaceSpot in the Delta Sport colors.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate you guys, doing this week in and week out and announcing the races. You guys do such an incredible job, and thanks to the PRL, the team Delta Sport, and thanks to all my friends and family, and my wife Sarah, everyone that tunes in to watch every week. So thanks everybody. Have a good one.
Carl Modoff joins us and didn't even recognize the situation in the championship, but that was remarkable. Joey's going to have a chat now with our champion Vincent Trepigny after a tumultuous final round of the season.
Indeed, we can confirm, Vincent, that you tied on points with Carl, but because you had 3 wins this season, he had 1, you win the championship on countback. How does that feel after a roller coaster of emotions in those final laps?
Seriously, I got a lot of emotion all the weeks, but for the last 2 laps, oh my god, guys. It was just when I saw Nick, he touched the grass and he come in on my racing line, I just no. But seriously, thank you to Carl Mordoff, very how to say it, fair play driver, or sportsman, or I don't know how to say it. But
we understand what you're saying. It was the most sportsmanlike thing I think we've seen in quite a while. But you're going to come home with your 4th championship in the PRL this season. We look forward to next season with some incredible drivers who are coming back. One of your teammates, Guillaume Levike, is coming back. How do you think you're going to compete next season?
I think the stuff will be very tough, because I know Guillaume Levike, Andrew Caron, and all the other guys, they are very stronger than us. But we're gonna make two different teams, so we're gonna run together. But I think it's gonna be very tough for me to win the next championship. So yeah.
Well, Vincent, one more stat before you go. With 4 championships, you now have more championships than anybody else in PRL GT3. Congratulations, and we'll see you in 3 weeks' time.
Thank you, guys. Is it possible to thank somebody?
Go ahead.
Yep, I want to thank all my teammates, Simon Theriault, Guillaume Lévesque, Luc Caron, all the guys in Advanced Motorsport. I want to thank you for the broadcast, RaceSpot. You make an awesome broadcast. And thanks to the PRL for the organization. And yep, so thank you, guys.
Vincent Trepanier, your GT3 Sprint champion for 2023 Season 3. We'll catch a quick chat with one more driver before we go here. It's Mr. Dominic Olivier, 3rd place, 1 podium to end the season. And I believe 4th place in the championship for you, a season where you've won multiple races. What do you take away from the last 10 weeks?
It was a tough season, man. I came into the season not really having too many ambitions until I gave it a good go in round 2, and then I realized I could probably fight for the championship, but really made a mess of 2 of the other rounds in Spa with the DQ and the spin in Zolder. But these tip my hat off to these guys, Carl and Vincent. They've been pretty consistent and spot on all season. It's tough to beat them. I think next season is probably going to be a lot of fire with some bigger names coming in. So definitely humbling.
That's the theme. We got nervous laughter about how difficult it's going to be next season. But Dominic Olivier Arjuna, we called him Dominant Olivier at times this season. We're still going to see that a couple times next season, I can guarantee.
And what a next season it's going to be. I'm still a little bit in shock. It's not often that you see that level of sportsmanship in any sort of racing, let alone, I was going to say competition, let alone in racing. Carl Modoff epitomizes what the PRL is all about. A shame that we're not going to see him back next season. Let's quickly touch on the provisional schedule for next season before we say goodbye to those watching. We start at Monza, Sebring, Hungaroring, the trip to Laguna Seca, Jerez, Road America, Interlagos, Okayama, Fuji, and Watkins Glen to come. No new tracks, at least provisionally scheduled, Joey, but ultimately, those are, again, a diverse set of challenges for these GT3 machines to dive into.
You have to imagine that either the Laguna Seca round or the Okayama round, those will be replaced by a new track if we do get something. We know that the rescanned Zandvoort is coming in with the newly reconfigured track for F1, so it's going to be even better for racing, a little bit wider in places, the flat-out final corner. There's also Ledinon coming. That's a little bit of a Rudskogen-type track. I think that might be a little bit too small for GT3 competition, but you never know. Could always get a wild card next season to shake things up.
Well, Joey, as we wrap things up, we know that you are planning to be back for the PRL Xfinity Series next season. Is the field for this upcoming campaign strong enough to get us both back into the commentary booth? I think it might indeed be.
It might be. They thought I was out, but then they sucked me back in. I got to see the prototypes, because the top-level prototypes are returning to the PRL on Monday nights with the GTP LMP2 series, in addition to the LMP3 GT4 series, which, by the way, Sean Campbell is back in the LMP3 series, so there's another name to throw into the PRL. but it might need to be a Monday, Tuesday for me next week. I might have to put 2 broadcasts on the docket, because that's how exciting this stuff's being in the PRL.
Yeah, oh boy, that Monday looks fun as well. And if I didn't have other broadcasts on Monday, I might try and jump in and steal that away from TJ Clark and Ewan O'Leary. Boy, what a wild ride that we've had, though, over these last 10 weeks. And if anything, if we have any sort of expectations and predictions, it's only going to be wilder from here. Don't forget that September the 10th, for the very first time, it's the PRL All-Star Invitational. We'll have all the winners from this season head out and race, and they'll be joined by some drivers that can make their way forward from a last chance qualifier. Here live on RaceSpotTV at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you join myself and Joey once again for what's surely going to be a pretty electric ride. For now, though, it's time to say goodbye for yet another season. For Joey, for myself, for the entire team at RaceSpot that's brought you this coverage over the last 10 weeks of competition, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in 3 weeks' time for another season of doubleheader PRL GT3 action.